east of the city of Jeoj, where a large city is spread out under the rays of the sun, and in a temple near the city center, namely from the eastern part, our hero young Chen, addressing the guy. The girl asked if he did what she had in her hands, showing the young man a magazine and asking if the young man really drew a whole book with it and sold it at the academy. At this moment, the girl was pointing at the magazine where she was sitting in the main role. The young man, looking at the girl, said, addressing the older sister, that it was not because she was too beautiful. Everyone really liked this book, to which the girl replied that he was not even engaged in cultivation, but did delusional things. The girl sighed to her brother. She also reported that there would be an assessment of the inner courtyard soon, and if the young man continued in the same spirit, he would be excluded, to which the guy said that the elder should not worry, because he had reached the cultivation of the Fuhu fist, so he was sure that there would be no problems with the assessment. Then, listening to all of him, no one could believe that young Chen was saying that he had already achieved the cultivation of the Fuhu fist. Well, who would believe it? The rest of the sect's disciples were standing behind them and laughing at the young man. They said that no one could achieve this, especially considering that the young man had been treated for 3 years at the first stage of the body hardening stage, and they said that this guy was so evil. He drew such a book about his older sister. The young man, hearing all this, was angry, and the sister said that she wanted to see Fuhu's fist, which the young man brought to a climax and asked to show her this fist, holding a whip in his hand. After seeing the whip, the young man was horrified and asked his sister, saying that he did not want to harm the flower, so he asked to forget about that this time. The girl, using her whip, went on the attack and began to attack the young man, to which he saw how she broke the asphalt, asked the girl to calm down, because his fighting spirit is extremely strong, and if he activates it, he will not be able to stop him. The strength of his fist is limitless, and he did not want to harm the girl. Listening to all this, froze in surprise, not understanding what they had to say, and then they started laughing after hearing what the guy said. Turning to young Chen, the sister asked if he had just said that he had a fighting spirit and asked if the young man even knew what it meant at all, to which the guy, wiping his nose, said that of course he was aware of this. The fighting spirit is a kind of gift from heaven for a cultivator. Their owners are also called heavenly masters. He gives his master strength and outstanding abilities. Also, a heavenly master can become a god in the future, to which this girl was surprised when she heard how much the guy knew. The young man replied that he was the same great celestial master, pointing at himself, from which everyone began to laugh again. Behind the young man, another disciple of the sect appeared, who laughed at the guy and said that the guy had been treated for 3 years and was now at the very bottom, and he still dared to call himself a heavenly master. How the young man was just a terrible person, and therefore the guy asked him to wake up already. Seeing the young man in front of him, young Chen said nothing, and only he looked at him contemptuously. Then the guy asked young Chen to prove to them that he was a heavenly master and asked to show them all his fighting spirit. The girl, watching Zhu Liang, who was trying to annoy the young man, told him to stop. At this moment, turning to the elder, the young man said that he would help her teach this non-entity a lesson by getting into a pose to attack young Chen. Everyone standing behind said that Zhu Liang was already at the peak of the second stage of body hardening. Young Chen was finished. Then others said that no one forced him to lie. The young man had to prove his strength. Zhu Liang went to attack our hero. He just stood and looked at him, the next moment attacking the guy so that he flew off a few meters and smashed the asphalt under him. Looking at all this, the elder and all the other students were madly surprised, realizing what had just happened. The young man young Chen was full of strength, and he was able to attack the guy with his punch, showing everyone his fighting spirit. Addressing young Chen, the girl looked at the energy of the guy and how much he was angry, and said that she hoped that the young man would improve his cultivation base as soon as possible and become an inner disciple, and asked not to waste the martial arts of Tanjiao. To which I smiled. The guy thanked his sister for giving him a reminder. Do everything as she said. Behind our hero, a young man lying in the asphalt and trying to recover, and the students surrounding him looked at the guy, trying to understand what kind of cultivation young Chen had, because she was just terrible. And this kid, what really could awaken the fighting spirit, asked everyone looking after the young man. Then the girls, who also watched the guys fight, said that the young man who was heading towards them was just beautiful. He was so talented and handsome. They wanted to marry him, saying that the young man was the most beautiful disciple of the sect. They were not talking about young Chen at all, but about that who was walking in front. Approaching young Chen, he saw his older brother and beamed with happiness. It was Xiao Kuei and started hugging. The guys were having fun, and the girls understood why the best and worst students in the outer sect got along so well with each other. They could not come to terms with it. At one point, I really said that Xiao Kuei was addressing him, that he had a good time today. He scared this bunch of people with his strength. His fighting soul had awakened and now he had the soul of a true dragon. Even Lai Kinglin was lying at his feet and bowing. Hearing this, the guy asked his brother to say that the elder sister did not hug the young man or something like that. Then the young man said that it was a pity that Xiao was not there. He would have seen with what eyes the elder sister looked at it. It was very hot, and if there was no to outsiders, he was sure that the girl would have rushed into his arms. But remembering the bitter truth, the young man said that it was a pity that Musu did not know about it. Then Xiao, turning to his brother, told Musu that he did not know that the young man had awakened his fighting spirit and asked them to go and tell her. Happy young Chen, recovering, said that it was necessary to go and tell everything to the girl. Musu's house. The guys were walking near the gate and then someone stopped them. There was a girl in front of the guys and Xiao, addressing his sister Shikang, said that they were looking for Musu. Then she asked if she could help them and the guys asked if there was something wrong. If they had something to say, the girl could pass it to Musu, and the guys said, turning to Shikang, that they were looking for Musu, and this case did not concern her and asked the girl to get out of the way. Hearing them address her, the girl said that they were also stupid, in addition to how they behaved. And then, turning to young Chen, who was angry, the girl asked if the young man was interested in what happened, because Musu did not want to get close to him and how he still did not understand this, because she would definitely become an inner disciple after passing the exam, and in the future their paths would diverge and they would live in different worlds. That's why Kang said it was better for them not to get attached. The young man, listening to the girl, said that it was impossible and he would not believe a word of her until he personally heard it from the girl. At that moment Musu herself came out, not understanding what was happening here. Then Xiao, a friend of our hero, turned to the girl and asked what it all meant. A little embarrassed, turning to her brother, Musu told brother Yang Chen that they had already grown up and now everything was not the same as before and asked from that moment to stay away from each other. Hearing this, the young man was angry, but agreed with the girl and she did not expect such an answer at all. But the guy turned around and decided that he had to leave, and his friend said that he hoped that Musu would regret it in the future, looking at the girl while his friend was leaving. So together they left the gate of the house where Musu lived, and the girl just looked after them. The next moment it was night and the young man was sitting on the mountain, and his friend next to him was looking at young Chen, trying to understand what kind of thoughts the guy had in his head. But at that moment young Chen was cultivating the art of the primordial demonic dragon. But then suddenly he saw something that attracted his attention and tried to understand what it was. Then suddenly the legacy of the martial spirit, the ancient demonic dragon, the art of the ancient demonic dragon fell into the hands of the young man from the sky. And holding the book in his hands, the young man was incredibly surprised that he came across such an ancient artifact. Opening it, he saw hieroglyphs and realized that with his current strength, while he could only practice the first chapter, therefore, I began to look at the book very carefully. They say that with its help you can rise to the heavens. This is a terrible technique that can make a young man incredibly powerful. The technique that was captured in this book, and he decided to try it right now. At this moment, his friend, who was sitting not far from the young man, suddenly saw sparks that were falling next to him and looking ahead could not understand what it was. Did his brother suck out all the spiritual power in this courtyard? Looking at the mountain where the young man was training, because all the power flew there. Taoist masters are divided by attributes. The vast majority of Taoist masters have one attribute. Masters with two attributes are extremely rare. For example, the Taoist of the fiery sky can only absorb the aura of heaven and earth associated with fire, while other attributes are difficult to swallow or even feel. The next moment, the young man, looking at his hands, realized that he was a heavenly master with all the attributes, and I rejoice at this, raising his hands up. The young man was insanely happy. Then hearing the guy's exclamations, his friend rose to him, asking his brother what happened and what he was so happy about. Seeing his friend who climbed up to him on the rock, the young man hugging him told Xiao Kue that now he would protect him, to which his friend did not understand the young man at all. Then our hero thought to himself that the ability of this martial soul to absorb aura was really terrible. In such a short time the aura of the entire courtyard she was absorbed, the guy realized, looking around him. Then the inspired young Chen suggested to a friend to go to Kaoj Mountain. When he heard about the mountain, he was surprised that the young man, going down with his brother and dragging him by the arm, said that it was useless to cultivate further here, and Kaoj Mountain is full of spiritual energy, which is just right for them to improve. There was not much time left before the exam and they had to do everything possible to improve their cultivation base, Yang Chen said, turning to his brother, whom he was dragging behind him. When he came to the mountain, the young man sat down and decided to cultivate his energy further. That energy was blazing around him and looking at him. Xiao Kuei was surprised how strong the young man's energy was. Did he continue to cultivate until now? The young man asked if he really wanted to become a cultivation beast, looking at the guy who was spinning in fire. Then our hero changed his face, and it took him one day at the second stage of body hardening. And Xiao Kuei thought to himself that he had spent a whole month looking at the young man who was still cultivating, and his brother understood that if this went on, then his young man would catch up, so he also decided that it was necessary to cultivate. But at this moment the sun was already setting, because the young men had been training for a very long time. Then, feeling some kind of smell, Xiao Kuei opened his eyes and saw that something had happened to his brother, looking at him and approaching the statue that stood in front of him. The young man asked his brother not to scare him like that. At that moment the dirt on the statue broke and his friend young Chen appeared in front of him. Xiao Kuei understood that the young man now had the third stage of body hardening, and was very surprised at how he progressed. The third level of body hardening is the most difficult stage in this martial realm. During it there is a complete purification of the body. Xiao Kuei thought to himself, looking at our hero, and realized that even he took 3 months to do it, and the young man did it only in a little less than 1 day. At this moment, the flaming young Chen and matured, turning to his friend, looked at him, and he thought that the first 3 stages of hardening the young man's body took a little less than a day. That was the speed. At this moment the guy realized that he was breaking through. All day long and they cultivated energy, and completely they didn't eat anything. Then the young man reported that he was hungry, and Su asked the guy to wait, running away into the forest and leaving our hero alone. A few minutes later, the young man, running back, dragged a huge carcass that he was carrying, telling his brother that he needed to eat well, and he brought him a strong giant bull with jade hooves and throwing the body in front of him. The guys decided that they needed to roast it right here, so after a few moments they were already absorbing the meat of bull that was spun on a spit from a makeshift bonfire. Young Chen was eating, because he was insanely hungry, and Xiao Kuei was frying the bull at that moment and looked at our hero as he ate the food. After a few moments only bones remained from the bull, and the young man realized that he was still hungry and looked at the bones in front of him. At that moment, the guy felt that something was wrong with him, and seeing the young man, Xiao Kuei asked his brother what happened to him. Maybe it was because of his fighting soul. Then the trembling young Chen tried to figure out what happened to him. Thinking about the fighting soul at that moment, the forces began cultivate by themselves, and the young man, having broken all the trees around him and scattered all the stones around him, realized that he was no longer hungry. Brother Xiao Kuei, getting out from under the stone that the young man had thrown near him, asked if young Chen was okay. But the guy thought to himself that if he hadn't run faster now, he would have lost the little amount of true Kai that was in his body. Looking at his friend, he was completely amazed at how the young man looked. And young Chen said that now he felt a surge of strength and was cheerful. Xiao Kuei, looking at his brother, said that he had now become stronger and asked the young man to try his new strength. Then the guy, clenching his hand into a fist, decided to stand in front of the tree and hit it to try his strength. The young man used the blow of the ancient dragon, and hitting the tree with his fist, he tore down the tree so that he punched a hole in it, and his friend saw that the young man possessed fire. It was the attribute of fire. Right in front of him at that moment young Chen was burning with fire, and the true purpose of the attribute of fire was burning in him. Feeling this, the young man thought that it must be the fiery energy of the true fire of the sun. This force is truly amazing. It deserves its reputation, the young man thought. At that moment, it was already getting dark, and Xiao Kuei, addressing his brother, said that he should have already returned. But he said that he had to find a cave and spend the night in it, and then continue his training, and therefore the heroes moved through the forest to find a place to sleep. The moon was shining on them and they were walking in an empty forest. Young Chen walked ahead and stopped. He was surprised by something. Then Xiao Kuei, looking at his brother, asked what happened. The young man, looking through the foliage, heard some sounds. Pushing it apart, realized that he had stumbled upon a treasure. In front of him was a pool in which a girl was bathing, who completely did not notice the presence of other people and enjoyed her bath procedures. The girl was calmly sitting in the spring and washing herself. At that moment our hero was looking at her with fascinated eyes. Xiao Kuei came up to him and asked his brother what he was looking at, and when he saw the girl, he almost screamed. But his brother asked him to keep quiet about it, shut his mouth. But the girl, turning back, realized that someone was here. Getting up from her hot spring, she turned right in the direction where our hero and his brother were sitting. The girl said that someone was here to let him out. At that moment the girl was already dressed and was angry that someone was spying on her. She was holding a sword in her hand heading towards our heroes. She was calm. And those who heard the steps realized that the girl was here. Now they will be revealed. At that moment something stopped her and she thought that an earthquake had happened. Looking back, she ran in that direction. Hua, addressing the young man, said that there was a rabid bear and they had to run. Then getting up, the young man asked about the bear, because he had not yet seen a rabid bear, so he wanted to go and look at him. To which Xiao, sitting next to him, told his brother that an adult rabid bear usually has the strength of the 8th level tempering. Even he couldn't beat him. It was too dangerous. The young man, heading in the direction where the girl ran out, asked what his brother was so afraid of because the girl had just gone in the direction of the bear. And so what was there to be afraid of them? At this moment, the bear was raging right in the direction where our hero moved. The girl was trying to cut the bear in front of her, which also went in that direction. She was running away from the bear so that he could not hurt her. Our hero, watching this, thought that it turned out that this Kyan Linxy had just taken a bath. Looking at Xiao Kue, our hero said that it was necessary to approach him and help him. The young man approaching his brother persuaded that the same one saw that the rabid bear was still quite small. He had only the 5th level of body hardening, and many vital points were affected. This bear did not have long left. Looking at the bears, the young man understood that the girl was trying to deal with him alone. She flew around the bear and amazed him with her with a sword, inflicting painful wounds on the bear. The same in turn tried to catch the girl and attack her. But this was not destined to come true. She struck the last blow and the bear howled and collapsed right behind her. Then the girl standing in front of the bear and addressing our heroes asked, finally they dared to come out, to which our hero replied to Kyan Linxy that it was a coincidence that they met her here. When she saw the young man, she asked that it was the same garbage, tried to remember his name and realized that it was Yang Hu's. The young man laughing said that she remembered his name. The brother stood next to the young man completely silent. Then, addressing a little shyly, Linxy asked the guys if they had just been near the lake where she was. Then young Chen, making a fool of himself, asked which lake the girl was talking about, because they were just passing by, heard a noise and came to see. They saw her about heroic fighting spirit and it was very cool. The young man spoke. Then Xiao, who was standing behind, looking at his brother how he was lying, understood that it all didn't sound very convincing. The girl also didn't believe our hero, tried to ask if what he was saying was true. Looking at him, the young man continued to bend his line and said that it was all true, and turning to the goddess asked if he would lie to her. Then the girl heard that he called her a goddess and said that earlier the young man called her an insidious temptress, and realizing that young Chen had made a mistake looked at the girl in front of him. The same she had already stopped paying attention to him and was approaching the bear, which was amazed. Then, going into the forest, she turned to young Chen, said that if she found out that the young man had lied to her, he would die, and went home. To which the guy remembered about the temptress and thought about what this person was talking about. His brother stood by and was silent, but then decided to remind our hero what the girl was talking about. Then Xiao decided to remind his brother that 3 years ago, when they had just entered the martial arts academy, the young man saw Chen Linxy and said that when she grew up, she would definitely become an insidious temptress. Listening to his friend, the young man could not understand whether he really said it. He did not expect the girl to remember it. They stood in the forest and discussed this situation. Then the brother turned to Yang Chen and said that he was right. Now the girl was just a beauty. If he married her, he would be very happy. To which the young man, listening to his brother, said that he was only 15 years old. Why was he in such a hurry? When he gets the status of a great heavenly master, he will be able to choose from all the beautiful women in the world. Chen Linxy would be his backup, the young man said. Listening to his friend, Xiao could not believe at all how arrogant and proud he was. Half a month later, in the mountains where our young men were, they went back down, thinking that this technique is very good. But young Chen is a little annoyed that she burned clothes every time. It was young Chen, who was half naked, because the technique he used burned these very clothes. Next to him was his faithful friend, who was also exhausted from training. The young men came to the village and Xiao followed his brother, telling the young man not to be sad, because this practice helped Chen reach the peak of the 5th level body hardening sphere in just half a month. It was very powerful, the young man said. Young Chen smiled and said that it was for sure Xiao Kue should not worry, because he too they will cover the young man in the future, Yang Chen said. Then Xiao told his brother that he had to hurry, because today in the square of the outer courtyard, the rules of the inner courtyard exam would be announced. And realizing this, the young man thought that he needed to change clothes sooner, because he was in an improper state. His clothes were torn. The area of the outer courtyard. The square stretched over hundreds of hectares, and everyone who wanted to see what would take place there came closer. There was also a huge palace in front of the square, and at that moment the girl was standing near the gate reading her book. Then our hero entered with his friend, smiling and seeing him. Everyone asked if it was really young Chen. After all, he really is a heavenly master. No one could believe it, because this loser awakened his fighting spirit. This master did not develop for 3 years, and then suddenly made a huge leap, and they said it would be funny if the young man can't join the inner sect. While all the students were discussing young Chen, he calmly walked to his place with his friend. Everyone was saying that it was a pity that Jian Wook was not so capable. Then our hero approached his sister and greeted the girl was very happy. She just looked at him with a grimace. The young man tried to defuse the situation, and he said that the girl was very beautifully dressed today. She, paying attention to young Chen, said that the young man had not come to martial arts classes for more than half a month, and she asked him to tell her honestly what he had been doing all this time. Our hero, looking at his sister, said that he had been practicing all this time and was very proud of himself, and asked the girl not to worry, turning to the older sister, because for him this exam was a mere trifle, because he was a great heavenly master, the guy said. Looking at young Chen, the girl thought that he was not serious at all. He was just smiling, and she understood that she had to ask him a question. Coming closer to the young man, she asked if the young man had risen to the level of body hardening. He listened attentively and told the elder sister that he had completed the stage of bone purification and reached the 5th level of the body tempering realm. Young Chen was very proud of himself and told everyone about it to his older sister. Then she did not understand at all how young Chen could rise so quickly, and, enraged at him, she told the young man to do what he wanted and left in the opposite direction, which our hero did not expect at all and did not understand how they needed. It was hard to react to this. Turning to his friend who was standing next to him, young Chen tried to find out from Xiao Kuei why the elder sister was angry with him. It seemed to him that the girl did not believe him, to which the young man thought to himself that young Chen had told her that in half a month he had moved from the 1st level of body hardening to the 5th, and I thought to myself, who should have believed him? At this moment, speaking on the main square, there was an elder who was told that at the first stage they would be able to assemble a team of 3 people and enter Kaoj Mountain. Everyone could use any means to collect materials for herbs or spiritual beasts. The main thing is to stay alive. If anyone encounters danger, he can seek help from the teachers of the academy, and they protect them. At that moment the man was in the air and broadcast to all the students who were in the sect. Everyone stood on the square below and looked at the elder who told them about the rules of the exam. He continued his story, saying that, however, if the guys called for help, they would fail the exam, and the more materials the group collected, the more points it would get. Everyone listened very carefully to the elder. Then he said that the guys were supposed to come back here in 3 days, and he would announce the 2nd stage of the test. Everyone rejoiced and understood that the test was about to begin. The elder sister running up to young Chen and his friend said that this rule was just for young men and they could unite and get a higher score. The girl was very happy. Then our hero told the elder sister that Xiao and he had already hunted on Kaoj Mountain and they would be able to cope together. After hearing this, the girl left. Speaking of the fact that the young man was hopeless, she was very angry with him, because she thought to get into his team. Xiao Kuei, looking at our hero, said that the elder sister was very worried about the young man, to which he did not understand at all what his friend was talking about, because the girl did not care about him. It was unthinkable. What was his friend talking about? Because the girl was only worried about the reward. That's why she approached them, and I wanted to be on the team with them. After their conversation, everyone went to the mountain, and our hero, following with his friend, also went along with the whole crowd of students. Then Xiao asked his brother if they really would not look for anyone else in their team. Our hero, after listening to his friend, said that it was necessary to see how things would go. If they met someone strong, they would take him with them, because they did not need weak allies, because they were only pulling them down. Listening to his friend and walking beside him, Xiao Kuei thought that the young man was really right. At that moment he asked his brother to look in the direction he was pointing, because it was Muzu. The young man, paying attention, saw a girl who was laughing and walking next to a guy. Wen Zhengming, they were laughing and were happy. Xiao Kuei, addressing his friend, told young Chen that a young master named Wen Zhengming, a disciple of the Inner Academy's White Tiger Pavilion, was walking next to the girl. Listening to him, young Chen only kept silent, and then said that even if it was so, it was none of his business who the girl wanted to be with. The guy tried to say it as detached as possible so that it would not seem that he was suffering. The next moment, this very young master named Wen Zhengeming drew attention to our hero, fanning himself and standing next to Muzu. He was telling the young man to look, was it really the first genius of Jian Wujiao, and in the same team with the loser brother? The young man said that then Jian would definitely not pass the test, after all. He was in the team with young Chen, to which the young man replied that it was not the guy's business and tried to look at him with his menacing gaze, covering his own with a fan. This very young man said that he was just reminding the young man in a friendly way about who he was on the team with, and when hugging the girl and saying goodbye to the guys, he wished them good luck, waving his fan. Hue, addressing his brother, walked right behind him. The young man was silent and did not say anything. Behind them were all the other students who were also going to the same mountain. They began to discuss that Jian was in front of them and that he really teamed up with Yang Chen, although he is very strong. But if he teamed up with Yang Chen, then probably no one would want to join them, everyone said. Also, teams of 3 people participate in this test and the guys lacked only 1. Plus only Jian is strong in their team and he alone will have to carry everything on himself, everyone thought, without implying what strength Yang Chen was hiding, and they said that the guys had little chance and that their team was very weak. Night came and everyone who was in the sect began their battle. Our hero stood against a huge bear, and he went on the attack. Then the young man also attacked the bear with a fire technique to defeat him. In one sitting, the young man dealt with the bear and, addressing his friend as a little one, asked the young man to take the trophy, shaking off his hands and smiling at his friend. Xiaoque, looking at his brother, said that he was even faster than him and was even able to kill an earth bear in one movement. His friend was amazed, to which the guy said that he would protect his friend and offered to move on to the next goal. So they defeated the wild beasts that were in front of them together 6 to at that moment when they were walking through the forest. They noticed a group of guys who were running right in front of them and decided what was happening there. So they had to look and check for themselves and they ran after this group of guys. At that moment, everyone watching the sky was watching the lightning that was being cut and realized that it was a sign of a miracle. Lightning flashed in the sky, swirling a whirlwind. Our hero, seeing this, said that it was a sign and that something was going to happen. 2 elders jumped out of the sign. One of them said that it was not a sign. The veins of the earth made the heavens shudder, and 2 elders said that it was just like that, towering next to the lightning. The elders standing in the air asked all the students to disperse and continue the inspection because this thing was dangerous, and if the guys were dragged there, they would die. The elders said and tried to protect all the students so that they would leave this place sooner. Everyone hearing about it could not believe their eyes and realizing that it was wild boredom. We decided to leave this place. Our hero was already left to watch. They say that the heavenly scripture is able to comprehend the heavens, the earth and all things and master their creation. The young man was wondering if he could comprehend the secrets of lightning, and the hero decided that he had to start cultivating and using his energy right now. At that moment lightning struck him, and the elders seeing it could not believe their eyes, and the moment the young man who was struck by lightning began to fall to his knees, and everyone was wondering what would happen next. Calling his brother, Xiaoque ran straight to him, and at that moment the young man was lying on the ground, not getting up at all, and everyone was trying to figure out what had happened to young Chen. The elders who were trying to cope with this element and Xiaoque ran up to the young man and looked at what happened to him. Lifting the young man from his stomach and turning him over, they touched the pulse of the guy and saw if he survived. Then one of the elders said that the boy was struck by lightning and it was a great misfortune. But the other said that the young man was a tough nut to crack since he was still alive, and asked his friend not to worry, because the guy had not died yet. He would take him to the elder for treatment. Then Xiaoque, shouting to the elder, said that he was his brother and that he, too, would follow them. The young man was taken on his back and carried to the hospital to be cured. The elder said that Xiaoque could go and not worry about the young man. He would be fine. Then the guy asked what to do with the test. The elder, carrying the young man on his shoulder, said that young Chen would continue the tests tomorrow when he wakes up, and the brother could only watch after the elders left carrying off his friend. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, the young man did not understand at all where he was, and when he got up, he did not understand where he was. He remembered how lightning struck him. This was the last thing the guy remembered at that moment, touching his stomach. He realized that lightning energy was buzzing in him and thinking. The young man guessed that it was really there was a heavenly lightning kai that was in it. It seems that the heavenly scripture absorbed yesterday's lightning and turned it into the kai of heavenly lightning. Just at the moment when it hit the young man, and the young man screamed, getting up from his bed and thinking that now he was invincible. The next moment he decided to think about where he was, because opening the doors to he understood by himself that he was in some kind of temple. A girl was sitting right in front of him, who was painting a picture, and he decided to approach the girl. feeling her strong aura, and looking ahead at the girl who was sitting and painting a picture, sitting at the table. The guy thought to himself that this girl turned out to be a master of the formation, and at that moment the girl was getting up from her seat, and the energy was gushing out of her. Master of Pharmacy. Although Master Pharmacy is exclusively an auxiliary profession of a Master of the Heavenly Way, his status is so respected that he is the most prestigious in the entire heavenly continent. Everyone who is a Master of the Formation should be a Master of the Heavenly Way. However, not every Master of the Heavenly Way is a Master of Pharmacy. Formation Masters create formations with many auxiliary effects that are extremely useful, both in cultivation and in battle. Some patterns can even be fused into weapons, armor to get a useful boost. Looking at the girl's clothes, it seemed to the young man that it was Linxy, but then the girl turned to him and asked if the young man had woken up, and turning to the fox, the guy asked if she was a Master of the Heavenly Way. Then the girl was surprised and looked at him and asked how the young man knew about it. Interrupting their conversation, Kyan Guan came up to them and asked if young Chen felt the power of the soul of other people. Then the guy said that of course he felt his pattern carved on the skin of the beast has the attribute of a tree, and it has a deep meaning. It must be some kind of protective pattern, the guy said, looking at drawings that the girl wrote. Kyan Guan, turning to young Chen, asked if he felt all this, to which the young man replied that he felt it. And then the girl's father asked our hero if he wanted to learn this, and falling on his knees, the guy bowed, said that he was young Chen, worshipped the master, and he committed several times 9 kinds of bows in one breath, banging his head on the floor, to which the man who wanted to teach him was completely surprised by such a reaction. Addressing her father, the girl said that this guy who was in front of him and bowed at his feet was a loser and a scoundrel, so she asked not to take his disciples. The young man just looked at the gentleman who stood in front of him. The man was so generous and said that as his disciple, the young man had to remember one thing. He should not be mediocre. If the young man did not make a name for himself in 5 years, Kyan Guan would exclude him from his students, Linxy's father said. Kneeling in front of the girl's father, the young man agreed with his conditions and asked the master how he needed to make a name for himself. Then he said that the young man had to become a celebrity in the Eastern Empire. At that moment the master looked at the foliage that surrounded him, and the young man heard it. Just as it turned out to the master, the young man was completely surprised by his reaction, as the young man thought to himself he should have become famous in just 5 years. Probably the man was joking. The guy understood that he had never even been outside the city of Kog, which is just a small city under the jurisdiction of Tianan County, let alone the vast territory of the Eastern Empire. In the vast Eastern Empire, Tianan County is only one of 108. At this moment, Linxy's father, looking at the young man, became a little angry and asked what was the matter. Did the young man have any problems? Then I smiled. The guy said that there were absolutely no problems and tried to seem unperturbed. But our hero thought to himself that first he had to become as a formation master. It was still too early to think about glory. Linxy was watching all this, completely not understanding what was in the young man's head. Then Kyan Guan, addressing the guy as a little Taoist, he said that he would stay at the Kog Combat Academy for a while, so the young man had to absorb knowledge like a sponge while he was here. Our hero of course accepted his words, and the girl's father explained to him that there was no need in the future in such formalities. He said that the young man was still waiting for the inner academy exam, so the young man had to go and finish it first. The father asked Linxy to accompany the young man, and when she heard, of course, she obeyed her father and escorted the young man out of the gate. Saying goodbye to the girl, the guy told Linxy that he did not know that the girl was a master of the heavenly way, and that she hid it very well. Then Linxy did not understand what young Chen cared about this. The young man addressing the girl said that he was wondering what the girl's level of cultivation was, and did this one make a breakthrough on the 6th level of the body tempering sphere. Closing the gate in front of the guy, Linxy did not understand at all why the young man needed to know this. Having already closed the gate in front of the guy, the young man only said that Linxy, as he thought, the collected hair went much more. But the girl did not understand what the young man cared about her hair, so after slamming the door, she left, and our guy went back to his task. The Kog mountain range. While our hero was cooling off, Xiao Kui was fighting with a wolf that was running right at him, and he was attacking the wolf. The young man was trying to hit him, hitting the animal. At that moment his brother appeared, saying that his brother's sword skills were only getting better and better. He clapped his friend, surprised at how the guy quickly dealt with the animal. Seeing young Chen, Xiao Kui was very happy for his brother and asked if the young man was okay, sheathing his sword and turning to his friend. To which young Chen said that such a small lightning could not finish him off. He was confident in himself and smiled at his friend again. Xiao Kui and Yang Chen, walking together with their friend, knew that he would be fine and said that they had to go and continue killing monsters, so they headed through the forest for their next task. Together they knew that they would mate with all the tasks. 3 days later, after the start of the test, everyone gathered again near the palace on the square. Our heroes were standing near one of the pillars and the War Wenjing came up to them, asking what it meant that no one joined them after all. At that moment Muzu was standing next to him and the young man was telling him not to mind his own business, trying not to look at them. Then, turning to Yang Chen, he, waving his fan, asked how many spiritual beasts the young man had killed and why he was so confident in himself. At that moment he was hugging the girl who was standing next to him, and Yang Chen tried not to pay attention to their questions. Then the elder, taking off the air, explained that all the teams had to approach him with their loot and passive. Any team that extracted more than 3 spiritual herbs or killed more than 3 spiritual beasts would pass the entrance exam. The elder said, looking at everyone. Of course, the more animals they have, the more rewards the guys will get. Standing next to Muzu, when Zheng told his subject to bring a bag, he had to go and hand it over. He obeyed and showed the elder what exactly Wen Zheng and Muzu were able to present. Namely, they killed 7 spiritual beasts and collected 1 spiritual herb. Then the old man said that they had passed the test. After hearing this, Wen Zheng asked how our heroes were doing, because Yang Chen, in his opinion, would probably fail everything. He said and grinned at the guy. The same stood quietly and yawned, because he did not pay attention to the guys at all. Asked Xiao Kui to bring their loot. Hearing this, Yang Chen became interested, and at that moment Xiao Kui was trying to get their prey, completely dissatisfied with how Wen Zheng reacted to them and talked about his brother. Taking out a large package that they had, the young man tried to bring it to the elder. The package was so huge that it occupied half the area, and this surprised everyone very much, because no one thought that the prey could be of such size. Wen Zheng and Muzu were especially surprised by what they saw. Seeing the bag, everyone asked how many spiritual beasts and herbs were in this huge bag. Everyone could not believe it and thought that the guys were lying, to which Wen Zheng, looking at this package with discontent, said that it was definitely a bluff. Then dragging the bag, Xiao Kui put it in the middle of the square, right in front of the elder. He also said that the young man had to open this bag and show its contents. Opening the bag, everyone was madly surprised by what they saw, and no one could believe how it was possible. Behind Xiao Kui from this bag, there were all kinds of animals and medicines that could only be. Everyone began to count how many animals the guys had killed and it was necessary to sum up. The elder said. Yang Chen, looking at all this with a grin, stood and was proud of how many animals they had killed and what they had done. Wen Zheng, hugging Muzu, absolutely could not believe what he saw because it simply could not be. The elder announced that the team of Xiao Kui and Yang Chen killed 90 spiritual beasts and brought 5 spiritual materials, and they passed to the next stage. Then everyone tried to understand how Xiao Kui did it, because he could not kill 90 spiritual beasts in 3 days alone. Sending. The elder of our heroes said that the guys were great and could go to prepare for the next round. The guys left the square and Yang Chen asked his friend how he thought the academy would give them for so many materials and spiritual beasts, to which the young man replied that he did not know the answer to this question, but he was glad that the guy thought of collecting some spiritual herbs. At that moment, the elder sister came out to meet them, and going to Yang Chen, she asked how the young man did it, because he killed so many animals. Seeing the elder sister, the young man was inflamed and said that he told her that he was a great master of the heavenly way, and his willpower was simply incomprehensible. Then the girl said that it must have been Xiao Kui's merit, but he tried to contradict her, saying that it was a young man. Grabbing the guy by the shoulders, the older sister said that in any case, the young man did well. The next round was not designed for teams, so Yang Chen had to do everything possible to go further, to which the young man said that his sister should not worry, because everything would be fine and the girl was leaving them. And at this moment Xiao Kui, addressing his brother, said that he had killed more than half of these animals. But the young man asked his friend not to worry about such trifles and invited him to proceed to the next test. Xiao Kui was inspired and asked his brother to show them his strength. While the guys were standing behind them, there was Muzu, who involuntarily heard their conversations. And then the young man, addressing his brother with a stony face, said that this was exactly what he was going to do, namely, show everyone his strength. The elder announced that the first stage was completed. Everyone who passed had to come to the second round tomorrow during the second stage of the test. The parents of the students would be present, so it was necessary to behave decently, the elder said, addressing all the students. Xiao Kui and our hero stood in front of the elder and listened to what he said, and then turning to his brother Xiao Kui asked how he thought the father would come to look at him or not. To which the young man said that it was difficult to say given the nature of the father, and then Xiao Kui thought that if only grandpa could come, he would be very happy about it. But the young man said that he could not even think about it. Grandpa definitely won't come, because has Xiao Kui ever seen grandpa leave the house? So they stood and decided which of their relatives would come. Both thought that grandpa would be happy if they passed the entrance exam. Yang Chen said that even if they passed the exams and entered the inner academy, they would gain access to cultivation techniques and martial arts. To himself, the young man thought that even though he owns the highest technique of the demonic dragon sword, he knows only one combat technique, the tiger fist. When he becomes an inner disciple, he will definitely search for a suitable basic technique. The next day, everyone came to the square again, and also the parents of the students arrived, sitting in the seats for the parents to look at their children. At that moment, our heroes also arrived at the arena, and the brother, addressing young Chen, asked him to look at it by pointing his finger to the side. Yang Zhenai, Yang Chen's father, was sitting on the podium, and when the young man saw his father, he rushed straight to him shouting that dad was there, and he was very happy about it. Xiao Kui also ran to him. Then when he saw his son, he said that he was still so impulsive and asked him to listen to him. If the young man did not enter the temporary academy this time, then his father would stop communicating with him. His father was very serious. Then all the joy of his son disappeared, because the young man thought that it was too much. I turned to the elder who was in front of him, and Xiao Kui bowed to his father, and he said with a smile that he had heard that the young man had already reached the 6th level of the body hardening realm, and that he dominated the outer sect. It was good and he liked it. Hearing this, Xiao Kui could not believe his ears. The young man thought to himself about Tom. When did he dominate the outer sect, and who started this rumor? The next moment, the father from the podium, as if by the way, shouted that young Chen had to tell him why he had offended Muzu. The girl was his fiancée. Hearing this, the young man could not believe his ears and then squinted at Muzu, who was behind him. Then another parent turned to Yang Zhengai's father on the podium and asked when his daughter became his daughter-in-law. It was Kyan, Muzu's father. Both children stood and watched their parents, completely not understanding how they could quarrel about their fate. Behind the backs of the parents, the others began to whisper, because they had heard that Yang Chen had been at the academy for 3 years and he was still at the 1st level of the body hardening sphere. How could such a loser marry Muzu? Then another said that a girl from the Yu family had excellent martial arts skills and her cultivation level had reached the 3rd at the level of the body hardening realm. She will definitely pass the exams and become a disciple of the inner sect. Everyone was gossiping, discussing our heroes. Then the young man was very angry, and he listened to everything that people said in silence. Someone said that he did not know whether it was true or not, but there were rumors that Yang Chen had awakened his martial soul, and even if that was the case, it would not help him. Others said, because when they heard about the master of the way of heaven, who trained for 3 years and was at the 1st level of the sphere body hardening, it was just ridiculous. It's as easy for a heavenly path master to advance as drinking water. Everyone thought it was a rumor invented by that little rascal Yang Chen to attract attention. Listening to all these rumors and gossip, the father was also angry, because he did not like it at all, and then he told his son to get out and get lost. He had to go and prepare for the test. The son left with Xiao Kui. The father thought to himself why the young man was still at the 1st level of body hardening, because he had high hopes for him. In addition, now his son does not get along with Muzu, and his father was wondering what happened between them. His father thought because they had already communicated well before. At this moment, the elder was saying that yesterday's test was an entrance test, but today it will be official. It is divided into 3 rounds. In order to become an inner disciple, students will need to pass all 3 rounds. Xiao Kui, standing next to his brother, said that they had won the 1st prize, but it was just an entrance test. But the young man was happy about it and said that everything was fine, and whatever the test was, it was necessary to continue to win 1st places. The elder also added that, in addition, the academy would discuss their overall performance and make a list of 10 leaders. For the 1st place there would be a special reward. The dragon pill, the elder said, addressing everyone. All the students, after hearing about the dragon pill, were insanely inspired that such a great prize was waiting for them. It is said that the dragon pill is a masterpiece of a great alchemist. Its main material is the dragon's life force. It has amazing properties. If you apply it, it can significantly improve your body, increase strength, and increase the chance of breaking through the border of the body hardening realm. The parents, looking at all this, thought that it was a very generous reward. Then the elder continued and said that in addition to the main prize, the top 3 would receive a pill and a soul-strengthening pill. As for places 4th to 10th, they would receive 10 pills of a small elixir. Our hero was also inspired. After hearing about the soul-strengthening pill, the young man was very happy and thought that he was at the peak of the 5th level of the body tempering sphere. If he wanted to reach the 6th level of the body tempering sphere and make a breakthrough, even with the heavenly scripture, it would take a very long time, and he thought that he should was to get this pill. The young man was determined to win. While our hero was thinking about himself at that moment, the whole crowd saw Linxy and wanted to look at her. Kyan, Linxy, and Guan Ming Hao entered the square. They were 2 of the most talented people in their sect. Even Jian Wujiao was slightly inferior to these 2 disciples, everyone said, and also that these 2 were a good couple. People started gossiping, and when they saw the guys they said that Guan Ming Hao was talented, but he was not worthy of the beautiful Linxy. Someone said that it was really so. At that moment the guys were heading straight to our hero. The young man saw Linxy, greeted the fox, and said that she finally came and asked what really happened. She missed him. Smiling, the girl told young Chen not to talk nonsense. Guan Ming Hao, seeing the guy, was completely angry and turning to young Chen, he told him to get out of the way. But the young man hugging the girl said that they were in love, so he asked not to mind his own business, which shocked the guy very much. And people started discussing and saying what they heard, that Guan Ming Hao was obsessed with Linxy. And after all, he had been rejected by a girl several times. But why was Linxy standing next to young Chen? Everyone was very concerned about this issue, and these gossips completely irritated Ming Hao. At that moment, the elder made a statement that the first round was a test of strength. Before the test, they all had to attack the power pole with all their might. Every inch of light on the pillar would represent 100 pounds of force. If the light rises by 1,000 pounds, then everyone will pass. The elder said. Our heroes listened attentively to what he said. The old man, Ming Hao, said that in order to qualify, the young man had to have a strike force of at least 1,000 feet. He thought that young Chen had a maximum of 100, so he asked not to be ashamed and just give up right away. Then young Chen, showing his tongue to Ming Hao, said that he could pass by himself and tried to annoy the guy. Ming Hao, seeing the young man's reaction, said that nothing would help him anymore, but the young man only continued to tease him, and Linxy, who was standing behind Ming Hao, laughed. At that moment, the elder said that it was possible to proceed with the test. So, 800 pounds, 850 pounds record, 850 pounds and counting it. The young man tried to hit the pole, and the observer said that the young man did not pass. The next one was the one who gained 900 pounds, and his record was 900 pounds. So the young man did not pass. So many more who tried to hit the column using their strength could not go beyond this test, and upset they went home. The queue moved up to our hero, and he watched closely what would happen. Behind him, the youths were talking about how the first round of the official exam was so difficult. It was not so easy to get into the inner sect. But if everyone got there, they would be able to get all kinds of cultivation resources, and everyone was praying that they would have more than 1,000 pounds to go further into the sect. Here one of the young men first gained 950 pounds, and then 1,000, and his record was 1,000 pounds. So the guy passed on, and the examiner said that the young man was insanely happy, and I'm glad he passed on. Our hero thought that even if everyone did not pass the first round of strength tests, it was not a fact that everyone would be lucky in the other 2 rounds. It was not so easy to get into the inner academy. Young Chen continued to watch those who were ahead of him. At this moment, a young man came up and hit the pillar. Hitting the post, the young man received 2,200 pounds, and it was a success. The examiner was surprised and reported that the young man passed on. Everyone was also surprised and looked at the guy in front of them was Sidu Ping. Sidu Ping was from the Sidu family. He was born with incredible strength. Now he practices a powerful family technique. No wonder his fist strength was 2,200 pounds. Sidu's family is rich. This guy can afford to eat enhancement pills and elixirs. While everyone was chatting about this, Sidu Ping, standing in line, our hero approaching Linxy, who was standing in front of him, said that Sidu Ping took so many pills, but the total strength was 2,000 pounds. This was a waste of his family's special technique, the guy said. Then hearing this, Linxy wanted to see how she would overcome this test, and will the young man be able to break the record of 2,000 pounds of this guy. The young man, hearing the girl's words, thought that she certainly did not believe in him and offered her to make a bet. Hearing about the bet, she became interested, and Linxy said that if the young man could not break the record of 2,000 pounds, he would run around the city without clothes, and asked how it was for him, addressing young Chen. Hearing this, of course, the young man was embarrassed because he did not expect such an answer, but then he decided to ask what would happen if he won. The guy thought to himself that the girl had to fulfill any of his wishes, and she, as if reading his thoughts, said that if the guy wins, she will fulfill any one of his wishes. Of course, the young man made a wish that if the girl wins, she will kiss him. Linxy, looking at our hero, who rejoiced because he was sure of himself and knew that he would win, thought, why was the guy so confident in himself? What gave him this confidence, and thought that the guy was probably bluffing. But turning to him, she said that she promised him what will do it if the young man really wins. At that moment, it was Guan Ming Hao's turn, who was approaching the column and also had to show his strength. Everyone was wondering how much Ming Hao could inflict, because he is one of the legendary 3 strongest fighters of the academy, and everyone was wondering how much his strength would be in one blow. After all, it was said that Guan Ming Hao could double his strength. If he did this, his blow would most likely reach 3 feet. At this moment, the young man rolled up his sleeves and came closer to the colony. The examiner silently waited for the young man to strike. Someone from the crowd said that he could not believe that the young man would be able to overcome the barrier in 3,000. The same concentrating decided to hit the column. The crowd stood and looked at Guan Ming Hao, and then they saw that the young man had really reached the 6th level of body hardening. They looked at him in surprise. Our hero also stood in line and thought that this idiot was nothing. At this moment, Guan Ming Hao used a special technique of strengthening the blow and hitting the column. The examiner reported 3,100 pounds. Everyone was of course surprised because the young man overcame this mark, which they were talking about, and turning to young Chen, he asked if he saw the difference, wiping his palms. Young Chen, in turn, told Linxy in her ear whether she saw that the young man was provoking her or not. This of course enraged Guan Ming Hao, because he expected everyone to be upset, especially young Chen. At that moment, the examiner announced that the next in line would be Jian Wujiao. The young man walked past his brother and he looked at his brother and waited for him to complete this task. Xiao Kui, approaching his brother, asked if the young man needed to hit with full force, to which our hero, of course, answered so that his friend showed what he was capable of, and supporting his brother asked him to come forward. Then the young man moved to the column to show everyone his strength. As he said brother, Xiao Kui was at the peak of the 6th level of body hardening. Everyone was surprised and understood it when the young man showed what he was capable of. Because this guy progressed very quickly, Guan Ming Hao thought to himself, watching Xiao Kui go into battle against the column in front of him. Gaining power and hitting the column, the young man showed everyone his true power. And then the examiner looked up and tried to figure out how much the young man had, like everyone else who was watching this, to which the girl replied that the young man had 100 feet and he could pass on. Did this giant turn out to be stronger than Guan Ming Hao? Wasn't he a step higher than the young man? Maybe the guy secretly trained. Everyone thought it was really a talent. Everyone watched Xiao Kui, who made an incredible blow equal to 4,100 feet. The young man continued to stand next to the column and watched while everyone was gossiping about her behind his back. Then the father pointed at himself and asked everyone to look, because it was his boy. Muzu's father, who had argued with him earlier, was thinking about what this had to do with young Chen's father, because it was all the merit of his old man, reminding as if to himself that their father was worthless. At that moment, our hero was happy that his brother had passed, and the exultant young man shouted at the whole queue that his brother had passed. And Linxy did not understand why young Chen was so happy for the young man. It did not fit in her head. Addressing the fox, the guy said that she did not understand anything, because his brother's success is his success too. The young man was elated and inspired, to which Linxy did not understand his reaction at all. In front of the young men whispered that 2 of the top 3 had already passed. Only Kyan and Linxy remained. Everyone was waiting for a magnificent blow from the girl, and when she approached the post, everyone looked at her with loving eyes. Young Chen, encouraging the fox, said that now it was her turn and he was very interested to see what kind of impact force the girl would have in touching her shoulder. He whispered it in her ear, so of course all the young men who saw it could not believe what young Chen was doing. The girl stepped on the ground and walking towards the pillar using her might, she struck this pillar, using her icy energy to make a powerful blow. The examiner, looking at the girl's blow, said that her blow was equal to 2,900 feet. This is a success. After hearing this, everyone did not understand why Linxy hit even worse than Guan Ming Hao. This surprised the young men very much, because their goddess was supposed to be number 1. And the girl did not hit as they expected, but for the girl it didn't matter. Young Chen, standing in line, said that it was not bad, seeing her blow to himself. The guy thought that Kyan Linxy was only at the peak of the 5th level of the body tempering realm. If she had moved to the 6th level of the body tempering realm, then her impact force would definitely have occurred. Guan Ming Hao. At that moment they announced that the next one was young Chen, and the girl were wondering, of course, what the outcome of their bet would be and in which direction. Who would be the winner? Young Chen confidently walked towards the column, and Linxy, who was watching him, could not understand why the young man was so confident in himself, and what if she really had to kiss him, she thought, embarrassed by her thoughts and shaking her head from side to side, thinking that this should never happen. It happened. The next moment our hero was warming up before his blow, and everyone was laughing, not understanding what the young man was doing. Then, cultivating his energy, he decided that it was necessary to strike, and everyone watching him thought that it was simply impossible. Seeing that the guy was cultivating energy, could he really make his body emit a powerful vibration of bones? At that moment, watching Wen Zheng and Mu Zhu also could not believe their eyes. After all, this guy Young Chen really wasn't at the 1st level of body hardening. How could he be so strong? No one could believe it. The young man turned out to be stronger than everyone thought. Linxy thought that this guy was of course a scoundrel, because he lied to her. Everyone thought that it was impossible. The young man had the 5th level of body hardening. Even if he is at the 5th level, he still will not be able to compare with him. Guan Ming Hao thought to himself, because this guy he must have forcibly cultivated at the expense of some miraculous pill. The force of his blow was simply terrifying. The young man thought to himself. Our hero, not listening to anyone in the neighborhood and very confident in himself, decided that it was time to attack this column, and using a twisted blow, made his strength. The force of the blow was so powerful that nothing could be seen on the stands, because everything was in a fog. Then looking at the column, the examiner said that the young man had 3,500 pounds and that he passed. Then all those who were watching in the queue could not believe that Young Chen could pass. Mu Zhao, too, looking at this, only uttered the name of Young Chen's brother out of surprise, because she was very surprised. And Wen Zheng, who was standing next to her, said that it meant nothing in a one-on-one fight. He would defeat him, the guy said. The young man asked the fox to look and showed her to the column. At that moment he saw that the girl had disappeared from her place and could not understand where she was. But he understood that once she ran away, she would not be able to avoid him for a long time, because they argued and she had to make the very wish that he made a wish for her, because they made a bet. Running away into the forest and walking through the forest, Linxy, who ran away from the square, said that the young man was a very bad person, because he deceived her and she would never let him kiss her. She was very angry and could not believe what had happened. Standing in front of everyone, young Chen, happy, was walking away from the column. Everyone was just watching the young man with their mouths open, and our hero was heading to his brother, who was waiting for him not far away at that moment. The sister thought that this did not happen. It could not be, because it reminded that half a month ago the young man was on the 1st level of body hardening, and now has reached the 5th. Young Chen was just incredible. She watched him from the sidelines, and then as his brother congratulated young Chen, the elder, coming out in front of everyone, said that this first stage of the tests was hardly over. Those who passed it had to come to a new stage tomorrow. Returning to the square, everyone listened attentively to the elders and left the square. The sun was setting, and our heroes returned home. Xiaoque, jumping on his bed, asked his brother how he thought what was waiting for them tomorrow. Then young Chen, looking at his brother, said that of course he did not know this, but probably as usual it would be a combat test. And sitting down on a chair, looking at his brother, young Chen continued to say that they would win anyone they don't like. They don't need to keep a low profile anymore. Sitting down next to his brother, Xiaoque asked him how he thought grandfather would come to the ceremony tomorrow or not. The young man sighed and said that most likely this could not have happened, but he only sighed and did not answer his brother. At the same time in another house, Guan Ming Hao's father and the head of the Guanzai family told brother Yuan that they had not seen each other for a long time. He did not expect that the young man had reached such a high level of cultivation and admired him. The master of the White Tiger Pavilion, Yuan Ming, one of the 4 masters of the courtyard of the Martial Arts Academy, KOG, who was sitting next to him at the table and drinking his glass, also replied that time flew by very quickly, and it seems like yesterday they were training with him at the inner academy. The men sat at the table and continued their conversation, To which Guan Zai told his friend that brother Yuan Ming would rely on him and asked him to take care of him at the inner academy. Then he was already pretty tipsy and said that his friend should not worry. After this exam, Ming Hao would be accepted into the White Tiger Pavilion and he would personally accept him as his disciple. The father, looking at his son after talking with a friend, asked Ming Hao why he should not pay homage. Hearing this, the young man knelt down and bowed to the master, saying that Ming Hao was glad to meet the master. Then he asked the boy to get up and did not bow to him on his knees. Turning to brother Yuan, Guan Zai's father said that he had heard that he would be an observer at the third round of the exam and said that there Ming Hao. But before he could say anything, he interrupted him and asked him not to worry. With excellent martial arts skills, Ming Hao will get first place in this exam. Will certainly be for the young man. Again drinking a shot glass, Father Yuan's friend spoke. Father also wanted the dragon pills to belong to Ming Hao. The next day, everyone gathered in the square again, waiting for a new exam that the academy was preparing for them, because then they would be able to pass and show what they were capable of. So everyone was waiting for what the elders would prepare for them for the next tests. The father standing next to young Chen Zaiokwe said that the guys were both great and did not disgrace him. He was very happy and said that the old man told him that after the exam they could go home for a few days, and it was very much inspired by Zaiokwe that he could not believe his eyes. Young Chen stood silently listening to his father. The father told them that the old man asked him to give the guys a message. He said that they should keep their trump cards up their sleeves. The guys listened to him carefully before the next stage of the competition was to begin. Then the elders reported that the second round of the internal academy exams would begin soon and the tests would be for checking the heart. Everyone who passed stood in front of him and were surprised, because they did not understand what was supposed to be behind the heart check that the elders had come up with for them. Everyone had heard about it for the first time and they were interested. Standing in front of them, the elder held a circle of energy above him, and at that moment this circle turned into a powerful light that was on the floor of the square, and all the students were watching him closely. Then the elder said that all the students who were going to take the exam had to enter the heart purification formation. They needed to keep their heart intact, and those who overcome all 5 levels would go further. At that moment all those standing in front of the heart purification formation began to enter it, and our hero went first. Entering the pharmacy, the young man found himself in a large forest and of course was surprised when he saw a large forest in front of him. Looking around, he saw giant animals rushing at him. Realizing that all this was an illusion, the young man was going to destroy it, so closing his eyes, he destroyed the illusion standing still, and the animals disappeared from his field of vision, splitting into 1,000 small pieces. The first level was passed. The young man thought that it was a trifle, so the young man passed level after level. At the second level he was in a battle, which he also successfully passed, and the third level was waiting for him, which he also easily passed, because it was nothing complicated. The next level was the fourth. Entering the new gate, the young men wondered if it was all here in front of him. The girls finally appeared, saying that young Chen had finally come, and our hero, flushed, could not believe his eyes. Then they said that if the young men behaved well, they would kiss him. Everyone watched as the students fell out of the portal that the elders came up with for them, unable to withstand the illusions that attacked them, and fell directly to the ground. The elder counted how many young men and girls did not pass this test, thinking that many had failed. The master of the courtyard of the Green Dragon Pavilion and Kyan Linxy's father, Kyan Bo Guang, also looked at this, and they thought that the senior sword master of his new disciple was very good. He passed the first 4 levels in just a few minutes. This indicates that the young man had a strong heart for martial arts and he will become a great man. Of course they were talking about young Chen, a disciple of Kyan Bo Guang. Kyan Bo Guang looked ahead and thought that the young man had received praise from the master of the inner courtyard. He liked it very much. But also Kyan Bo Guang said that the young man was still young, and although he was a novice student, he still needed to be sharpened. It was too early to talk about who he would become in the future. He spoke to his friend. Everyone strives for pure talent in martial arts, but few people know about the importance of the heart. Martial arts. If a cultivator with a high level does not improve the martial heart, one day it will happen that he will regret it. The man standing next to Guan said that these were golden words and he was very wise. At this moment they were watching young Chen, who was trapped in an illusion that was on the 4th level. The master of the courtyard of the Green Dragon Pavilion looking at young Chen, said that Kyan Linxy and Jian Wujiao and Guan Ming Hao had also successfully passed 3 levels. But it looks like young Chen got into trouble. At that moment our hero, looking at the girls in front of him, was completely confused and forgot about the fact that he was in an illusion. There was an older sister in front of young Chen, and grabbing the guy by the breasts and by the hand, she asked young Chen to go to her, because the sister would help the young man with his training. To which young Chen did not expect this at all, and trying not to pay attention to the girl blushing and turning away from her. He said that the girl was a fake, to which she clung more to our player, and asked her brother if he wanted to try double cultivation. After hearing about double cultivation, the young man almost couldn't stand it. Sitting on the bed, the older sister called her brother to her and said that it was necessary to do it together. But then our hero realized that something was wrong, and putting his hand on the girl's face said that she was not real. At that moment he sat down opposite her. Then Linxy appeared and talking about her brother. The reason is that she lost their argument and he can kiss her as much as he wants today. The young man did not expect this. At that moment Linxy sat down next to him and held the young man's hand. Then our hero broke into a smile, and Kyan Bo Guang, whose daughter was right in front of the young man, could not believe his eyes at all and stood with a stony face. At that moment, the master, who saw the reaction of the senior swordsman, said that young Chen was now in the prime of his life, so he asked him not to be angry. The temptation of beauty is normal. Didn't the ancient sages say heroes can't overcome the barrier of beauty? Then the young man almost reached out to Linxy, realized that she was also a fake, and stopping the girl she asked brother young Chen if he didn't like her. But the young man using the celestial aster understood that it was an illusion, and she was splitting right in front of him into 1,000 small pieces. The 4th level was successfully passed, and exhaling our hero realized that he had coped with it. Guan Ming Hao, entering the 4th level and seeing Linxy of the other girls in front of him, was completely amazed by what he saw. But he asked them to immediately look at the attribute that was in his pocket. At this moment the illusion immediately dissolved in front of the young man. The 4th level has been passed. The item that the master gave him to restrain himself and resist the illusion turned out to be really useful, the guy thought. The first place in the exam should have been his, the young man thought, realizing what power he had in his hands. At that moment, our hero was in front of the road along which skeletons were crawling, but realizing that all this was an illusion, the guy broke it and passed to the 5th level. After all, he was not afraid of skeletons at all. The sister and the fox could influence him, but not the smelly skeletons, as the young man believed, and therefore it was not difficult to defeat this illusion and the guy. And he easily passed this level, walking confidently to his future goal and breaking this illusion into 1,000 small pieces that fell apart before his eyes. He himself was coming out of the portal. The senior sword master, addressing Kyan Bo Guan and saying that young Chen's fighting heart is strong, and the one who stood next to Bo Guan thought that they would never be able to find a disciple who could compare with young Chen. He said and laughed looking at the screen. Back then, Kyan Bo Guan said that it was just the most elementary heart improvement formation. It was not worth mentioning. At young Chen's age, if a youth can pass through the intermediate heart cleansing formation, he will be considered an outstanding disciple. Then the sword master turned to Kyan Bo Guan and said that the elder was really right. He thought to himself that the intermediate heart reading formation was so intimidating. He was afraid that even he would not be able to break through it easily. At that moment, our hero found himself in a completely different dimension and realized that it was here that the heart purification formation was engraved. Looking at the hieroglyphs in front of him, the young man decided to look around and see if he could understand this heart formation, so he sat down in a pose for cultivation. Bo Guan, looking at how the young man behaved, understood that he did not even know how to engrave the basic template, but he already wanted to comprehend the heart purification formation. The young man, looking at the hieroglyphs flying right in front of him, understood what a clear scheme it was, and it was a great opportunity to learn, he thought. The next moment, rays began to illuminate the earth from the sky, and everyone standing on the square realized that the first person who came out was right in front of them, and it was Guan Ming Hao. He was the first to pass the heart improvement test, went straight down satisfied with what he had done. Right behind him was the second Jian Wujian. The third was Kyan Linxy. They all descended after them. The rest began to descend. Wujian looked at the sky, thinking about what was wrong with his brother, because he still wasn't there. Then suddenly our hero and young Chen came out of the hole that opened in heaven, releasing sunlight, and came last. Everyone said, but someone said that even if it was so, the young man still passed the test. At that moment our hero entered the earth and his brother was coming to him, asking if young Chen was ill and why he was so slow to leave this place. Then the young man, speaking in his elder brother's ear, said that they had earned a fortune and that they were now rich, Xiao, looking at young Chen, could not understand what he was talking about and asked him again. Then young Chen, with a smile on his face, hugging his brother, said that he would tell him everything later. At that moment, the elder asked for silence and addressing everyone said that the third stage of the exam would be held in the courtyard and those who passed had to follow right behind him. So the crowd of past students followed right behind the elder into the courtyard. In front of everyone was the Four Spirits Pagoda, an important tool of the KOG Martial Academy, where on each floor there is a great formation set by the formation master and the third round of the exam is to break through the tower, said the master of the White Tiger Pavilion, who will be responsible for the third stage of this exam. This time, only the 5 lower levels of the Four Spirits Pagoda will be opened. If the students pass the first level, they will be able to enter the inner academy, of course. If they want to fight for getting into the top 10 in this exam, they had to make every effort to climb even higher, said the master looking at the students who they stood in front of him and listened attentively to him. Guan Ming Hao, smiling, understood that no matter how hard everyone else tried, the first place could belong only to him and smiled. Looking at everyone else, at that moment the master told everyone to start and the doors opened for everyone. Our hero, entering the portal that was opened in this door, again got into the forest in front of him and in front of him was a swordsman who wanted to fight with our hero, saying that he had to die. After seeing this our hero understood that it was very weak. The warrior had only the second level hardening the body and waving only his fist, without making any effort. Our hero defeated this warrior with one blow, that he also flew into the air after losing his sword. The second level to which our hero came, standing in the forest, he saw a cruel shadow, the peak of the realm of hardening the body of the third level. In front of the young man was a wolf with red burning eyes, who also decided to rush at him, but was immediately struck by one blow of our hero. The elder, watching everything from the sidelines, could not figure out who got to the third level so quickly, to which another elder replied that he thought it was Guan Ming Hao. His Guan family's Wushu technique is very strong. And this guy calmly has a strong heart in martial arts. Guan Ming Hao has a great advantage over all the other students. It was said that the guy from the Guan family is really good. It's rare to meet such young geniuses like him. All of them were watching the tower that was right in front of them, where our heroes passed their tests. The master said that at the moment most of the students are still at the first level of information in killing, but Guan Ming Hao got to the third so quickly. His strength is a step above the rest of the students, smiling and laughing. He said. At this moment Guan Ming Hao was fighting a wolf at the second level, having a secret hidden gold in the armor that the master gave him. Because he could easily pass the second level with it, the wolf could not attack him in any way, given that the armor protected the guy. Everyone was surprised that someone else entered the third floor and thought that it was very fast, and everyone was wondering if it was Kyan Linxy or Jian Wujian. Because they were the only ones who could keep up with Guan Ming Hao, everyone else who watched it thought. The third floor of the ancient pagoda. On the third floor there were swordsmen who were supposed to meet our hero, and as soon as the young man entered from his portal to this third floor, he saw that he was being attacked by these same swordsmen in armor. So I'm trying to dodge them. The young man thought that they attacked very quickly. Are these puppets with a hardened body of the fourth level were in front of him. Our hero tried to dodge their attacks. The same ones, in turn, destroyed everything around. The young man only had to think that it would not be easy to cope with these two. It is more difficult than fighting with one puppet of the fifth level of body hardening. But our hero decided that he had to act and use the heavenly description. At that moment, 2 samurai were flying straight at him to attack the young man. But suddenly they began to slow down, and our hero was able to attack them so that he struck down 2 at once with one blow, and throwing them aside, the third level was passed by the young man. After using the heavenly scripture, the young man's eyesight became better, and the enemy's speed seemed to slow down, and our hero moved to the 4th level, waiting for what kind of battles await him ahead. Our hero got into the forest again. In the forest, he met 2 giant grizzlies who wanted to attack him. They were 2 earth bears at the 5th level of body hardening. And the young man realized that it would be a little more difficult than all the previous levels, which he came to easily looking at the bears right in front of him. At that moment, one of the students shouted for everyone to look, because someone entered the 4th level and pointed straight up. Then another said that Guan Ming Hao was just something, and someone said that maybe it wasn't Guan Ming Hao. Then everyone else thought that if it wasn't him, it was who? The elder sister, also watching everything from below, thought that perhaps it was young Chen who was able to pass to the 4th level, and only she thought about it. Because others, of course, could not believe it in any way. They all thought about other people who could follow the Guan Force Min Hao. At that moment, someone flew out of the portal, from the tower that stood in front of everyone, where the students were watching the battles of the heroes and the elder. Seeing the young man lying on the ground, said that all the students who had not passed the first level had already got out. Another of these students was lying right in front of him. The elders were watching everything and understood that many did not pass. Less than 200 people were transferred to the courtyard at this major exam. But this is much less than last time, and they all carefully watched what was happening in the tower. Then one of them said that this time the rules there were others, although there were few of them among them, there are real geniuses. Speaking about the students, the elder said, which makes this class the best in recent decades. The master, looking at the elders and the tower, said that he would hope that these young people who are moving to the next level have at least some sense of self-preservation, because if they injure themselves, they will have nothing to do in the courtyard, even if they pass this exam. An hour later, everyone continued to look at the tower, saying that there were still 5 people who were passing. At that moment, one young man flew out of the building, and it was Sidu Ping. All looking at how the young man was sitting on the ground, they said that even Sidu Ping did not go up to the 3rd floor. This pagoda turned out to be too scary, and there are only 4 people left. Everyone was excited that there were 4 people left in this tower, and decided to list who these 4 lucky ones were. And these 4 lucky ones were Guan Ming Hao, Jian Wuqiazhen, Kyan Linxy, and who else was left there. They could not remember and decided to see who had not yet come out of those who were watching outside, and remembered that they had not seen young Chen yet. It was really young Chen who was still in the tower. Everyone standing there was surprised, because no one expected that the young man would be able to hold out for so long. The crowd was making noise, and at this moment Muzu, who was standing and watching the tower, was also surprised that brother young Chen had become so good. The girl was surprised. Then suddenly Kyan Linxy jumped down from the tower and landed on the square. Everyone looking at her did not understand how the girl did it, how she managed to get out of there unharmed. While everyone was discussing Kyan Linxy, our hero was fighting with 2 grizzlies who were waiting for him and attacked the young man. Covering himself with his hands, our hero understood that it was too difficult to cope with these bears. Addressing the master, Yang Chen said that these 2 would be difficult to deal with. He would have to use one of his trump cards up his sleeve. The next moment, our hero used his secret technique and dealt with one bear with fire. Seeing that he was struck, the young man thought that his Kai was so strong and powerful, and looking at the bears, Yang Chen thought to himself that those 2 were so willing to chase him. Now he beat them to death. At the same time, Guan Ming Hao was fighting with the same 2 bears that were waiting for him on the 4th level. Jumping away from one of them and dodging his attack, Guan Ming Hao thought that this 4th level was too difficult, and he did not think about what he would succeed. All his clothes, there was a torn and golden armor visible from under it. The young man was wounded, but even if so, he still had to be in the first place, he thought, whether this was true or not. At that moment, looking at the tower, everyone saw that someone had gone up to the 5th floor, and it was 2 people who had gone up to the 5th floor, whom everyone was watching closely. All the students were wondering who these lucky ones were. A minute earlier, Qiu Zhai, the master of the Xuanwu Pavilion, could not believe that someone broke through to the 5th floor and reported it to everyone aloud. The man was very interested in who it was. Then the master said that Guan Ming Hao reached the 5th floor, confirms that he became the first genius of the outer courtyard this year. After asking about Guan Ming Hao, Qiu Zhai turned to the master again. The master, addressing Qiu Zhai, asked if he thought that it was not Guan Ming Hao who had penetrated to the 5th floor, and he answered him that he thought that was exactly the case. Then he asked Qiu Zhai if he dared to place bets. The elder wondered what conditions the master would offer him, and we decided that we had to argue. Then the master, addressing Qiu Zhai, said that if he won, he would take his cloud sword for himself. Qiu Zhai agreed to this, looking at him, said that he agreed, but if the master lost his bloody sword, the bloodsucker would become his, rubbing his mustache. Qiu Zhai said while they were arguing. Two people went up to the 5th floor. The master, looking at the tower, wondered what kind of 2 people went up to the 5th floor. Was it Jian Wujian? At that moment, Guan Ming Hao used the Guan family's Wushu technique to defeat the bear that was right in front of him, aiming at his eye and attacking him with all his might. But the bear felt terrible pain. Guan Ming Hao attacked that, throwing the young man aside. He bled, and Guan Ming Hao understood that he could not come to the 4th floor, but he had to be the first. At that moment, Guan Ming Hao was flying out of the tower, and someone said that he had gone to the 4th floor. Seeing Guan Ming Hao flying straight out of the tower into the square, the master shouted that young Chen had been there too long. He must have been badly injured, and told them to catch him sooner. But having caught him, his elder was not looking at young Chen at all, but at Guan Ming Hao, who was very badly injured and was lying in the elder's arms. All the disciples, seeing him, could not believe it. How was it possible that Guan Ming Hao flew out of the tower? Qiuzhai, looking at the master, said that this meant that Yang Chen and Jian Wujian were on the 5th floor, which means that the master had lost to him. So turning to Yuan Ming to the master, he asked Qiuzhai if it was time for him to give him his sword. After hearing this, he understood that he had lost. But more, what annoyed him most was that Guan Ming Hao couldn't win and go to the 5th floor and didn't become the number 1 master, as he promised him, his father. The next moment, he was already throwing Qiuzhai's sword, saying that it was a waste of time. The elder sister was watching the tower and thinking to herself that Yang Chen had really reached the 5th level, and it was amazing. The girl was both surprised and very happy for him at the same time. While everyone was looking at Guan Ming Hao and thinking about who went to the 5th floor, our hero was trying to fight with a bear who was beside himself with anger and attacked the young man, and he only tried to evade his attacks. Yang Chen thought that this earth bear of the 5th level was strong. His current attacks could not cause him any harm, he thought. But with the heavenly scripture, the bear would not be able to catch up with him. The young man thought and decided to use it. At this moment, in another place, Wujian was also fighting the bear by attacking it with his sword. 15 minutes later, these two guys finally got out of the tower. Wujian and Yang Chen were descending. Landing on the square, everyone was looking at them attentively, and Master Qiuzhai, rubbing his mustache, thought that these two young men had lasted a very long time on the 5th floor and were not even injured. They were good fellows. Those watching them were afraid that from now on no one would dare to mock Yang Chen and call him a loser. The young man was really cool. Everyone had to say that Yang Chen was good enough and hid his powers very well. Our young man stood in front of all the students, proud of himself, and then Muzu saw our hero, addressing brother Yang Chen. She wanted to say something to him, but the young man just walked past her without paying any attention to the girl. Then Qiuzhai said that the number of people who passed and transferred to the inner academy is 198 people. They will announce the exact rating of the test a little later. The latter, catching up with Yang Chen, said that this time his brother was definitely number 1, to which the young man went to his brother, saying that he was also at the 5th level, so the young man had a chance to take 1st place. The master, looking at the young man in front of him, said that it was decided that Guan Ming Hao would get the 1st place. After hearing this, they did not understand at all how this guy could get the 1st place if he lasted less than both of them, and Wujian and Yang Chen were completely surprised by this. The 2nd place was taken by Jian Wujian, and the 3rd place was taken by Kyan Linxy. And then our hero, unable to stand it, asked why Guan Ming Hao took the 1st place. The master, looking at Yang Chen, who was indignant, and asked who he was and why he questioned their decision, to which he shouted that the elders were blind. Any sighted person would definitely see that the 1st place belonged to Wujian. The brother did not understand at all that the young man was so angry that he didn't get the 1st place. Looking at each other, the master and Yang Chen flashed lightning. Because both were proud and stood on their point of view, our hero defended the truth, and the master defended his promise to Guan Ming Hao's father. Yang Chen, angry and enraged, shouted that Jian Wujian took 1st place in the strength test, 2nd in the heart test, and 3rd in the ancient 4 spirits tower. And as for Guan Ming Hao, he took 1st place in the heart exam and 3rd place in the ancient 4 spirits tower. He didn't even manage to break through to the 4th level. How could he take 1st place in the list of the best? Then the master shouted at Yang Chen, saying that how dare he question their decisions. The young man, not feeling the master at all, said that he did not know how much the Guan family paid, but it was unfair. Everyone hearing this was completely amazed at the guy's impudence, and the master hearing this was furious and decided that he had to teach the young man a lesson. But our hero used the heavenly scripture to confront this master. Then the master said that the young man was impudent and he would disqualify him from the inner academy, to which Jian Wujian asked how he could disqualify his brother. He is much better than Guan Ming Hao, defending his brother Yang Chen, Wujian said, addressing the master. The girls, watching this with loving eyes, thought that it was an uprising. Yang Chen and Wujian, that things were too cool. Everyone liked them. The father, watching this, was silent and only watched from the side, watching what would happen next. The master was furious. He used his fire technique and asked Jian Wujian if he should have been expelled too, to which the young man also got angry. Addressing the master informally, wanted to use his strength, but Yang Chen stopped his brother, saying that they could not defeat him now. The master said that due to the lack of respect from Jian Wujian, he was disqualified from the list of the best. Kyan Linxy will be 2nd, and Sidu Ping, who was previously in 4th place, will take 3rd. If everyone disagreed with the decision, they could get out of the academy. Kyujai, who was standing next to the master, only silently looked at his decision. All the students started whispering that young Chen was disqualified from inside the academy. It was very bad, it was not easy to get there, and it was too cruel. Then running up to young Chen, the older sister asked if the young man knew what he had done, to which the guy said that the girl was very cute, when angry and smiling at her. The elder sister asked how he could laugh in such a situation. He was expelled from the inner academy. Why he argued with the teacher? Because he had to get into the inner academy, to which our hero replied that it was an unfair test. He was not going to put up with falsified results. To which the sister said that if the young man continues to behave like this, then she will no longer take care of him. Then the girl, pushing aside her anger, said that by the way, half a month ago the young man was only at the 1st level of the realm of the hardened body. How did it happen that he suddenly reached the 5th? Our hero stood silently and looked at her while she asked her question, but then said that he was studying his sister's book every day, so he was at the 5th level now. Hearing this, girl blushed and started shouting at young Chen. Then they were approached and interrupted their conversation, addressing young Chen and Jian. In front of them was Mr. General Lai Huishan, the general of the city of Kyoji. It was the father of the elder sister, and she asked why her father was here, to which the father said that he came to meet 2 talented young men. The hero was bowing to the gentleman at that moment, and he was stroking his daughter on the head. Then Lai Huishan, the general of the city of Kyoji, addressing young Chen, asked if the young man was expelled from the Kyoji Academy. If he wanted, he could join his army of green tigers, to which the young man gratefully accepted the general's proposals, but said that he had to consult with his family first. The general, looking at the young man, said that today he had worked very well with his brother. Their army of green tigers would always be glad to see them, and leaving with his daughter, said that the young man was very good. He could become his son-in-law, to which his sister said that her father was mocking her, since he says such things. Wu Jian approached young Chen, told his brother that if he did not get into the inner academy, he would not go either, and offered to join the Green Tiger army together, to which our hero said that there were many valuable resources in the inner academy, and his brother had to go and train, and the young man had his own the path. Having said that, young Chen turned around and began to leave, and Wu Jian, it only remained to agree with his brother and asked him where the young man went, to which our hero said that he would look for a fox. Wu Jian said that a lot of time had already passed, and the guy was thinking only about women, but the young man, walking ahead, said that he was going home to the fox, and her father was not only his future father-in-law, but also a mentor. The brother was very surprised where young Chen had a mentor, and only looked at him leaving after. Kyan Bo Guang's house, the young man, going to the gate, approached them and closing it behind him. He was met by an elder, addressing young Chen. Whether he was in front of him, it was the mentor of the White Tiger Pavilion Dai Kang. He asked young Chen if the young man had been disqualified by the inner academy and if he knew what kind of place it was, asking if he was allowed to come here. Looking at the mentor of the pavilion of the White Tiger Dai Kang, the young man said that he was doing here because he came here because his master lived here. Hearing that his master lived here, the man was completely surprised. Is young Chen's master Kyan Bo Guang? To which the young man said that it was, so I went into the gate. It was not surprising that young Chen had been progressing rapidly lately, so he was under the tutelage of the master of the Holy Ball, and then he thought that he should have informed the master about all this sooner. Entering the gate, our hero saw his master, who was cultivating his energy and training. Seeing this, the young man felt how strong the suppression was in front of him. The master, distracted from his cultivation, saw that the young man came and stood right in front of him. Then he, out of breath from the strength of the master, greeted him and bowed. The same asked the young man to sit down. He pushed the chair in front of the young man so that he sat down at the table, and our hero, sitting down, thought that his master was really cool. He must have trained high-class martial sword arts. Sitting down in front of him, the master asked if our hero wanted to learn. He nodded his head and said that it was really so. But sipping from the mug, the master said that the young man was still too weak for this. Watching the master in front of him, young Chen was depressed and upset. Then Guan asked the young man about how the tests went. He watched his heart test. Guan spoke and said that the guy barely coped. Then the young man decided to tell the teacher how it was. Looking at young Chen and listening to his story, Guan asked how this Yuan Ming could behave like this, to which the young man said that he also could not believe it, because they reached the 5th level in the last round and were better than Guan Ming Hao said that as a teacher he behaved too much defiantly. It was a disgrace to the entire martial arts school. Yuan Ming has embarked on the path of evil. Then young Chen asked the master why he should not say something and kick Guan Ming out of the martial arts academy, to which he said that the guy should not bother his head, because he was not a member of the academy and could not influence this situation, and besides, on his part, young Chen was it's a cowardly act to ask a master to intervene when you're not good enough, to which the young man tried to prove that he wasn't a coward. Our hero knew about himself that you can't rely on the master. This old Guan Ming was the most important big shot in the inner academy. How could he win with his own strength? Our hero thought, to which Guan replied that young Chen was his disciple, and Guan Ming mocked him because he looked at him from high if the young man had a chance. Then he had to beat him. Looking at the reaction of his teacher, the guy realized that his teacher was not thinking at all like everyone else, as it seemed to him before, and asked his teacher what he had to do, so they sat at the table and talked. At this moment, Guan was saying that in order to restore young Chen's reputation, he had to become very strong. Strength was of great importance in this world. And after hearing these words, addressing the master, the young man asked if he could stay here for training, but then he heard a firm no, and even the master was surprised. They were with young Chen. They looked in the direction from which the sound came. An angry fox was walking to the table, saying that they could not allow the young man to stay here. Addressing his father, the father only smiled, but then turning to the pension, said that the young man was his student and could stay here for now. Someone should do all the work in the yard from now on. The young man can live at their house, Linxy's father said. She was completely angry with her father, because she did not expect him to side with the young man. Our hero, showing a peace sign, tried to explain to Linxy that everything was fine. Realizing that there was nothing Linxy could do, the evil one went home, and our hero, without paying attention to it, asked the master when he would teach him how to make his patterns. He absolutely did not expect such a question so early, because the young man was not ready for this yet and said that it was too early for him to make patterns. The young man had to read all the jade scriptures first. The young man, getting up from his desk, jumping up, said that he would read these scriptures all night, and going into the house, he saw in front of him a giant room in which there were thousands and thousands of scrolls that looked right at him. Seeing this, our hero had absolutely no idea that he would have to read so much. It was night outside, our hero, sitting in a room with scrolls and trying to learn all their power and all their knowledge. And while he was concentrating on what kind of knowledge was in the scrolls, he heard that Linxy, addressing her father, said, wishing him a pleasant appetite, said that today they had a tonic soup from the heart of a golden jade deer. Hearing this, our hero was insanely surprised, because he also wanted to eat. The father, addressing the girl, asked that it was not often to meet a golden jade deer, was very happy with the food. Our hero, distracted from his writings, entering the room, looked at Linxy, who was carrying a dish, and seeing a fox, the young man asked if it was soup for him. The girl, angry, looked at the guy, saying that it was a good attempt, but why was the young man still here? Was he really going to stay here? To which the guy, rubbing his head, said that I was the master told him to stay here and train well. Turning to the fox, the young man asked if it was time for her to fulfill the conditions of the bet that had not been concluded. Upon hearing this, the girl shuddered. She did not expect at all that the young man would remember this, and holding dishes in his hands, gave it to the young man, saying that he ate, and she went home. Picking his nose and looking at the departing fox, the young man could not understand her reaction in any way. Wasn't it just a kiss? Why was the girl so shy? And opening the lid of the dish, she thought that the soup smelled very good and the young man really liked it. And after trying it, he realized that it was very tasty, so he immediately ate the whole bowl and went outside looking in front of him, thinking about how good it was, enjoying the smell of a summer evening. Suddenly something threw him back into the house. The cover fell out of his hand, and the young man said that he had to continue studying, not to leave until he made his first pattern. Hearing this, the young man understood that the master had heard their conversation, so he became so strict as our hero thought, and he had no choice but to go back to the room and sit down again to read the scriptures that were in front of him. Half a month later, the young man cultivated his energy. He became much stronger, and causing an explosion, saw that he had made this fiery information, and he finally succeeded. The young man was very happy. At this moment, the master, coming into the room and looking at the hero who was able to do something, said that it was not bad, because the young man took half a month to practice his first pattern. Linxy, watching from the side, from behind his father, thought to herself that this guy really he was very good. Even the girl needed a month for this. Then the master, addressing the young man, told the young man that he could leave the library and further study the gravitational pattern. Getting up from his seat, our hero was very happy and said that he would definitely do it, and looking at the fox, asked how she felt if she thought that the young man was very talented. to which the girl made a grimace and said that the guy was just very lucky. The father was leaving the room, and Linxy, who was standing next to the guy, looked at him at this moment. Our hero said that it was time to fulfill his conditions, moving closer to the girl, who, hearing this, said that they should not have talked about it when he studied the gravitational pattern. Linxy was walking away, and our hero, watching, was exploring to himself about what it meant that she would kiss him when he finished studying the gravitational pattern, and it sounded like a challenge to him, so he decided that the girl had to wait for him. Half a month later, winter had already come, and leaving the house, our hero shouted to his teacher that he had finally done it, and a beautiful sight appeared before him, namely, Linxy, who was catching snowflakes while standing in her winter cape. Approaching the girl and standing under the snowflakes that fell on our hero, addressing the fox, young Chen asked if he and the fox would be together now, to which she, stepping on the young man's foot, asked him not to spoil all the fun. Then Linxy's father joined them, saying that the guys were very early, and Guan thought to himself that it was good to be young. Turning to the master, young Chen said with a happy smile that they had fought hard all night. After hearing this, Guan thought that this boy was getting impudent. He was using Linxy in front of my eyes. He thought it was time for him to teach this young man a lesson. At that moment he saw a beautiful golden phoenix in the sky. What was in front of them and everyone else looking at the sky understood that it looked like the academy was in trouble, as Guan said, seeing this sign in front of him in the sky. Looking at the sky, our hero asked his teacher, who was so big, looking at the golden bird that was in the sky. Guan, addressing young Chen, said that it was the golden bird Luan now. In addition to this bird, people from the Battle Academy of Bianjing City have arrived here. At this moment, Guan was also looking at the sky where this golden bird was. Young Chen, addressing Guan, said that his Bianjing Academy, what were they doing here? The young man asked his master. Then the master, looking at the golden bird, said that the cities of Bianjing and Kog were next to each other and belonged to the same county. There is a tradition according to which the martial schools of both cities, they compete with each other every 3 years. This tradition of the two academies of martial arts every 3 years checks the talent of martial artists from both cities. Holding competitions, the master explained to his student, and the young man, looking at the sky, said that it meant that it was a call. Then Guan said that he had heard that this time the Bianjing Battle Academy, there are excellent students. Young Chen and Linxy had to go together to watch the performance and have fun there. The father told the guys, looking at the girl who came up and also listened to this conversation. Sitting at the table, Guan Ming Hao said that the Kog Martial Academy came out to meet the guests, and when he saw a bird in the sky, he asked the teacher what it was in front of him. Then the master answered Guan that it was the golden bird of the Bianjing Martial Academy. He did not expect that it would arrive so soon. Looking at the sky and addressing Guan Ming Hao, the master said that they had to go quickly and gather all the new students of the inner academy. On the square of the outer academy, the bird landed right on it, and not all the guys came to the place and wanted to see what it was like. Then our hero, having come to the square with Linxy, saw his brother, and he was also happy when he saw him. Then our hero asked Wu Jiang what was happening here, because a very large number of people who wanted to look at this golden bird had accumulated in the square. Wu Jian was explaining to his brother that a huge spiritual beast had suddenly appeared here, and then the master ordered all the new disciples to gather. Our hero, looking at the bird in the distance, was very interested in when he would have the same luxurious pet. He thought to himself. Interrupting his thoughts, they said that the owner of the pavilion was already here. Our heroes decided to turn around in the direction from which the shouts were coming, like all the other students. Then elders and masters came out of the door, and the elder, addressing the people from the Bianjing Battle Academy, said that all of them had come a long way to get here. He thanked them for their hard work and asked everyone to follow him to the courtyard to go to rest, and asked how it was about postponing the competition for the younger generation. Smiling and laughing, he spoke. Descending from the golden bird, the master, addressing the master, said that there was no need for this. There were not so many young people in Kog who could withstand the competition. The competition would pass quickly, so the master suggested starting. In that case, they decided that it was necessary to start. The rules will be the same as last time, the master from Bianji reported. 5 students from each side will play against each other. The winner remains on the field. The loser is eliminated. If all participants are defeated from one side, the team loses, and asked if there were any questions from the masters from Kog. Then, looking at the master in front of him, the other said that he had heard that they had a very good student, and asked if it might have been better to change the rules, to which the master said that it was not so. Their students this time were not bad, and there were a lot of them. and this rule was in their favor, he reported. Therefore, turning to the master from the opposite team, he said that it was necessary to do as he said and agreed with his rules. The master, hearing this, asked his disciples to descend, and they got off the Firebird one by one. Looking at all this, our hero thought that it looked like these masters were very talented. Watching from the sidelines, and Linxy, who was standing behind him, asked how the young man knew this, to which he replied that he just felt it, with a proud look. And Linxy, hearing this, did not believe it at all. The young man, as always. The master, addressing his students, asked them to remember to be careful, and not to act unreasonably, and not kill someone inadvertently. After listening to the master, they agreed with him, and the students from the city of Kog, led by Guan Ming Hao, stood opposite and received guests with angry faces. One of the students, addressing brother Ming Hao, said only that he had to teach them a good lesson, to which the other said whether it did not seem to the guys that those young men from the opposite team were too self-confident, and it scared him very much. The master of the Kog Academy, addressing all the students, said that the competition between the Kog Martial Arts Academy and the Bianjing Martial Arts Academy begins right now. Everyone froze in anticipation, waiting for an exciting battle. The first from the opposite team, namely from the Bianjing Martial Arts Academy, Chu Yiming came out and introduced himself. Yiming said that he was at the 5th level of body hardening. Then the master said that Sidu Ping had to be ready for the first match, because he would be his opponent. So the guys went out to the square, standing in a circle, and a fight was waiting for them. Sidu Ping, introducing himself, said that he was a 5th level body tempering. As soon as the young man introduced himself, his opponent Chu Yiming from the opposite team went on the attack using his Fire Tiger technique, and everyone saw it, understood that it was a heavenly fire master, which everyone was madly surprised, because they did not expect that this young man would be so strong. Young Chen, observing everything that was happening in the square, said that this guy looked completely ordinary, but the young man was a heavenly fire master. The elders watching, namely Quzhai, said that it looked like the opposite team had recruited good students, and it was no wonder that the Bianjing Martial Academy was behaving so arrogantly this year. Scratching his mustache and looking at the battle, he said to his friend, the master, who was standing next to him. At this moment, a battle broke out between the young men, and Chu Yiming attacked Sidu Ping, who tried to repel his attacks, but he did it badly, because the young man who stood against him was very strong and even blocking his blow. Sidu Ping could not withstand Chu Yiming's attacks, so he flew away, but grouped in time, and he was ready to go into battle again using his powerful Vajra skill. Sidu Ping attacked the young man Chu Yiming again, and he countered him with his fire attack, and Chu Yiming's attack was so strong that Sidu Ping flew to the side. The elder who was watching him realized that the child had not even used his fighting skills, but had already crushed Sidu Ping's power. Sidu Ping, kneeling in front of Chu Yiming, was completely exhausted, and the young man, lighting his fire on his hand and using his strength, said that everything was over and wanted to attack the guy further. But then suddenly the master of the Kog Academy shouted that it was enough, because in this match they admitted defeat. The flame on the young man's hand, it immediately dissipated, and saying that how weak it was, the young man rejoiced in his victory. All the watching students of the academy, watching this, asked not to be such an arrogant guy, because this is only their first victory. It is unknown what will happen next. Everyone else said, so they asked Chu Yiming not to show off. Young Chen, watching this fight from the sidelines and seeing Chu Yiming, who was too arrogant and could not believe that there really was someone more arrogant than Young Chen, it really infuriated the young man very much. Linxy, who was standing next to him, said that Young Chen was more arrogant than Chu Yiming and asked to believe her, because she was telling the pure truth. The young man, hearing this, lost his head and, smiling, thanked Linxy for the compliment. She did not understand at all whether the guy was normal or not, since he took such words as a compliment. Young Chen, continuing to smile at Linxy, whispered to her that his arrogance only manifests itself in front of outsiders, and in front of his fox, he is just a stone that can be kicked at random. The girl, listening to this, said that then she would use him as a punching bag. Hearing this, Young Chen asked Linxy to immediately forget about what he said before. The master at this moment, addressing Guan Ming Hao, said that the young man would be the second to perform on the square, fighting with Chu Yiming. He was ready and rolling up his sleeves was already standing in front of the young man. The same looking at Guan Ming Hao said that it was him, the first in the inner academy. For the guy it's just ridiculous. Young Chen, hearing Chu Yiming's words, started laughing and shouted that the young man was right about Guan Ming Hao, pointing his finger at him, but then making a smart look, of course, said that Guan Ming Hao, of course, would defeat this Chu Yiming. All the students looked at the guy with evil sidelong glances. Guan Ming Hao launched his attack and Chu Yiming also decided not to delay and went into battle, so they began their battle. Guan Ming Hao was the first to attack Chu Yiming, but missed, and the watching Linxy and Chen saw what speed Chu Yiming's guy from the opposite team had, realizing that the young man was very agile, since he dodged Guan Ming Hao's attacks so easily. Guan Ming Hao, realizing that he missed, looked at the young man from the suspender, and he understood that Guan Ming Hao was very slow, and explained it to the guy. Then suddenly, while Guan Ming Hao was trying to understand what was happening, the young man used an afterimage and attacked Ming Hao from behind. Feeling the blow that he struck Ming Hao, Chu Yiming did not understand what kind of feeling was in front of him. But looking at the young man's back where he attacked, Chu Yiming saw that he had golden armor. Guan Ming Hao was trying to catch his breath, and the master at that moment saw that the KOG Martial Arts Academy allows its students to wear hidden armor in competitions. It was amazing, said the master from the Bianjing Academy. The master looked at his friend and he replied that he did not know that the young man was wearing this armor. Then the master shouted for Guan Ming Hao to leave the arena urgently. Chu Yiming, laughing, said that this was the whole strength of the KOG Fighting Academy. He was amused and asked why the remaining 3 participants would not fight together against him. All the students, looking at Chu Yiming, could not say a word because they were annoyed by the guy who was so confident in himself. So no one dared to speak out against him, and he just stood on the stage and laughed, looking at everyone in front of him. After all, Chu Yiming was sure that there was no worthy opponent against him here. This time, the students of the Bianjing Battle Academy were too strong. All the students who were present at the battle said, seeing that Guan Ming Hao lost. Everyone did not understand at all what they had to do now, since the strongest did not stand up against the enemy. Chu Yiming was standing on the square, asking if there were any other people who wanted to fight with him. If no one dared to come up, then everyone would have to admit defeat, he said, looking down on everyone, knowing that the opponents did not dare to come out against. Then the master who was behind Guan Ming Hao earlier said that the young man Chu Yiming was too arrogant. Did he really think that there were no worthy students in KOG and called for Jian Wujian to enter the ring? Hearing this, and Jian Wujian did not say anything and only remained silent. Then the master could not understand why he doesn't listen to him. The young man, in turn, apologizing to the master, said that yesterday he was careless during training and received serious internal injuries, so today he could not fight. After hearing this, the master and everyone else were amazed at what the young man was saying. The students began to say that the owner of the White Tiger Pavilion wanted Wujian to fight despite feeling unwell, because it was he who kicked Chen out of the KOG Fighting Academy. Then they said that Wujian was a disciple of the master of the Green Dragon Pavilion. First they would have to ask permission from him. Realizing that Jian Wujian would not fight, the master called Linxy, saying that the girl should go to the battlefield and she would come forward in front of all the students who looked at her with loving eyes. Only Chen supported the fox, saying that if she could not win, then she should scream to Chen and then he would save her. Going out to the square in front of the young man Chu Yiming, he also looked at the girl with loving eyes, not knowing that there were such beautiful girls in the KOG Combat Academy. Linxy, introducing herself to the young man, said that she was the 5th level of body hardening and that she was ready for battle. Chu Yiming only looked at the girl while wiping the drool that was pouring out of his mouth. The young man did not know that Kyan Linxy was so beautiful and what a wonderful name she had. Continuing to look at the girl in front of him, the young man rubbed his face and thought that why wouldn't Linxy stay with him all night? Then he would admit defeat in this round. Chen, hearing the offer that Chu Yiming received, thought to himself that he would kill this bad guy who dared to say such a thing to a girl. Linxy, completely ignoring his words, began to attack the young man with her formations, and Chu Yiming realized at that moment that he was facing a formation master. The master from the Bianjing Martial Academy, looking at the girl who was in front of him on the square, could not believe that there was a formation master in the KOG Academy. Chu Yiming, realizing that the girl was a master of the formation, said that even if it was so, it would not help her. At this moment, patterns and a circle formed under the young man in which he stood, and Linxy used an ice formation against the guy. He did not understand what was happening at all, and the master watching him from his academy understood that the young man was an idiot. At that moment, Chu Yiming's legs began to freeze in ice, like the whole young man, turning into one big piece of ice. He lost to the girl as soon as he relaxed his vigilance. Linxy won, and the young man remained chained in ice, and she announced that the next one would come to her to fight. The whole crowd cheered, and all the students said that Sister Linxy was amazing. Young Chen, standing among the students, addressing his brother Wu Jiang, asked if he had seen how amazing his fiancée was, to which the young man reminded Young Chen that his brother had told him once before that Linxy was just a backup option for the young man. Hearing what Jian Wujian was saying to Young Chen, the guy tried to cover his brother's mouth with his hands, saying that the young man should not talk nonsense. Now this fox was a real bride, while Wujian thought to himself that the girl was not even interested in his friend. While the guys were arguing, Chu Yiming, who turned into an ice statue, was being carried away from the square, his fellow brothers. At that moment someone else ran onto the stage and everyone gaped at the young man who had a huge sword on his back. It was Chu Pan from the Bianjing Martial Arts Academy, and he was ready to fight. There was also Linxy standing against him, who used her patterns to attack the young man, who only looked at the girl's attempts to take out a huge sword from behind his back to attack her, and split her formation using his sword and using the killer blade of the desiccant. Then the young man ran straight at Linxy to kill her. Then the master from the academy shouted that they were admitting defeat, and a huge sword stopped in front of the girl's face. Not often, the young man replied to the girl that he met a female formation master and asked Linxy why she didn't go with him, putting away her sword, looking at the girl, to which Linxy said that if the guy didn't stop, she would kill him. The young man was very surprised and thought about that the girl was right. If he didn't stop now, he could really die. Or she asked the guy to come down from heaven to earth and left the square. When she went down, she was met at the bottom by all the students of their academy and also by Young Chen, who looked at Linxy. Approaching him, the girl said that the guy was mocking her and she no longer wanted to compete with him. Sulking and looking at Young Chen, the young man hearing this understood that the girl complained to him and was flattered this one. The master, looking at another master, said that they had only Wujian and the only disciple above the 5th level of body hardening, to which he said that then he would let him fight and called Wujian. But then Young Chen interrupted him, turning to the master and asking him to let him go to battle instead of his brother, to which they heard that Young Chen wanted to do it, asked what he was doing. The master replied that let him try, because Young Chen was not bad. Perhaps the young man could help Wu Jiang eliminate 1 or 2 rivals, and they said that Young Chen could go to fight. To which the second master, of course, was dissatisfied, because he was generally for Guan Ming Hao and did not believe in Young Chen, considering him the weakest guy. Young Chen, going on stage, stood up against his opponent, who had a huge sword, and addressing Chu Pan, said that he had offended Linxy, so now he could not expect mercy from him. The young man hearing this was angry at what Young Chen was saying to him. All the students, looking at Young Chen, said that it looked like they had no people at all, since he entered the arena, to which others replied, what could they do, because there are only a few people who are above the 5th level of body hardening. Guan Ming Hao and Kyan Linxy lost, so if they put Young Chen up, then they would have no one left. So they would hope that Young Chen could withstand the competition, and they still had hope, so they were rooting for Young Chen so that the guy could win. Chu Pan asked if Young Chen was looking for death, looking at him, to which our hero said that why did the young man say that? Did he really want to kill him? But the guy would not succeed, because Young Chen would tease his opponent as much as he wanted. Young Chen said and started calling names, which is very Chu Pan was very angry, and Young Chen told him that even if he called names, he did not die. Then his opponent drew his sword and went on the attack. The angry guy used a murderous sword strike to attack Young Chen, to which he used the heavenly scripture to resist the young man's attack and was ready to take his blow. At that moment the young man used his blow to disperse Young Chen, and everyone looking at it realized that Young Chen was mortally wounded. But then it was necessary to look again once carefully, and Young Chen had already attacked the young man from behind, using the true flame of the sun and hitting the guy right in the back. He flew to the end of the arena, released his sword and lay stricken. Young Chen, running up to him, did not want to end this fight at all, and hitting the young man in the face with his fist, told him to shut his dirty mouth and continue to bludgeon him while he was lying on the ground, to which the master from the opposite team Bianjing told the guy to stop it, to which Young Chen replied, bludgeon the guy, that the young man did not declare defeat. The master shouting at Young Chen said that the young man broke his mouth, as the guy was supposed to declare defeat. He was lying on the ground beaten and absolutely could not say anything. Smiling, Young Chen, rubbing his head and sitting covered in blood on Chu Pan, said that he did not notice that he had smashed the guy's face and did not hear his pleas for mercy, so he apologized and laughed very much. Linxy laughed to herself when she saw this. She was very glad that the young man had dealt with this guy. The master, looking at Young Chen, understood that the young man had done it on purpose, and everyone was chanting Young Chen's name, and the students were happy that the guy had defeated the opponent. Our hero stood on the stage and said that the next ones could come out against him, and the master from Bianjing said that Zhang Hong should have gone next and taught the young man a lesson. A new hero came down to the square and introduced himself as Zhang Hong of the 6th level of body hardening. Stood against our hero who was ready for battle. The young man had a fan in his hands and greeted Yang Chen with a smile. Yang Chen, seeing the 6th level of body hardening in front of him again, could not understand if there was someone stronger in their Bianjing Academy than this young man, because he constantly came across weak players, to which the Academy master thought to himself that Yang Chen was too arrogant. Everyone watching the fight looked at Yang Chen, and the girls said that the young man was just crazy and they liked it. Admiring Yang Chen, everyone looked at the guy who was about to fight a new opponent. Zhang Hong, addressing Yang Chen, said that the guy had the strength to defeat Chu Pan and he deserved to be taken seriously by the young man, cultivating his energy into a fiery one. Zhang Hong said, and everyone saw it, wondered what it was. There was another heavenly master in front of them. The young man used the martial soul formation. Wu Jian saw it and was very surprised. Linxy, who was standing next to him, was also surprised, because they did not think that the guy was so strong, and Wu Jian, turning to Linxy, asked what it was. The martial soul formation. Linxy explained that the martial soul formation is considered forbidden. It is one of the most powerful special martial formations. And after hearing this, Wu Jian could not believe that Yang Chen's opponent used a forbidden formation and asked if Yang Chen's brother would have problems. Turning to Linxy, she only looked in front of her, waiting for what should already be. It was hard to be ahead of this battle without understanding it from the beginning, because Yang Chen had always been very confident in himself. Yang Chen looked at his opponent and saw the patterns of the formation on the floor, realized that it was a forbidden formation. The young man found it interesting and he decided to also use the formation to break Zhang Hong's formation, which he noticed when he saw the guy trying to do it, and the young man addressing Yang Chen said that not everyone could do it to do. The formation was called the 10,000 weapons formation. It gives an unlimited number of weapons, and addressing Yang Chen, the guy said that the young man was the end, because he would not be able to escape from him. At that moment our hero could not believe what his opponent was saying and began to sneer at him, to which Zhang Hong said that the young man enjoyed. Then our hero was ready for his attacks and decided to resist them. A battle ensued between them, and our hero, catching swords that were heading straight at him, said that it was not difficult to find the foundations of the formation. So you beat off the swords that fell directly into the foundation of the formation. Our hero was able to break it, and the opponent did not believe that as it was possible. The formation was breaking right before his eyes. Using his formation, Yang Chen decided to attack his opponent, saying that now it was his turn, and attacking the young man. He realized that there was also a formation master in front of him. The guy realized that the Yang Chen that was standing in front of him was not so simple. The gravity formation that Yang Chen used against his opponent, which he could not move, he was attracted to the ground, namely to the formations that our hero used. And then Yang Chen used the tiger fist against his opponent and defeated the young man with one blow. The opponent flew straight to the feet of his master, and he could not believe that this boy could destroy the forbidden formation of Zhang Hong. The master did not expect that a genius would appear in the KOG Martial Academy this year. He said to himself, looking at Yang Chen who was in front of him. Guan Ming Hao, watching the fight, could not believe it. He could not understand how it was possible. Why this boy was so strong, looking at Yang Chen in front of him, who was able to defeat two opponents at once, with ordinary ease, which Ming Hao could not. Everyone was cheering as they watched Yang Chen, and Wen Zhen, who was standing in the crowd next to Mu Zhu, was thinking to himself, was Yang Chen really a formation master? Mu Zhu, looking at Yang Chen's brother, was very surprised at how the young man was able to grow up. Everyone chanted Yang Chen's name and said that they adore him and that the young man was super, and they were very much rooting for him. All the students of the academy were on Yang Chen's side, rooting for his victory. Yang Chen, standing on the square, said that the Bianjing Martial Academy was about nothing, and asked if they still had students and asked them to bring the next opponent to him. The master, looking at his students, realized that there were only two left, Zhang Hong and the others were injured, and the remaining two were not his rivals. Therefore, when addressing, he said that the young man was the only one who could fight in the KOG Academy. The master understood that he had to act very carefully and turned to Yang Chen, to which he said that he alone would be enough to defeat all of them. Looking at Yang Chen, the master said that this competition was between academies. The master from the KOG Academy said that even if none of their team could defeat him alone, it only proves that their students were weak. He said, referring to the master from the Bianjing Academy, to which he said that these were the rules. Did the old man deny it? Yang Chen said that it was just fine, then he just asked to replace him with someone. But the master told Yang Chen not to make the decision for him, and Yang Chen shouted to brother Wu Jiang, saying that he was next. Wu Jian obeyed his only brother, came out of the crowd, saying that he was ready for battle, and asked the remaining two from the academy to attack him. The master from the Bianjing Academy thought that the young man who entered the battlefield was even more arrogant than his brother and shouted to the two who were behind him to go and beat the guy to death. To which the beaten Zhang Hong, who stood and rubbed his bruised cheek, told the elder that two boys can't handle this guy. The master was angry and asked everyone to shut up and do what he says, and asked to finish off this arrogant boy. Two students from the Bianjing Academy came out against Wu Jiang, and our hero, taking out his sword, was ready to fight against them. Seeing that the young man took out a sword, two swordsmen rushed straight to attack our hero, and he attacked them and was able to repel the blows, breaking the swords of the guys, which they were insanely surprised, as was their master, who did not understand what it was just in front of him. Yang Chen shouted from the rostrum that the Bianjing Academy had to return to them when it prepared its students. Everyone laughed at Yang Chen's reaction. And then, returning home, all the students and the master climbing on their giant firebird had to leave and rising into the air. Everyone followed them with their eyes, laughing at the fact that Wu Jian and Yang Chen defeated the academy, showed that KOG Academy was the best. The masters laughed and told Yang Chen that their martial arts academy had treated him unfairly earlier. This time on behalf of the academy, the master cancelled the punishment and invited the guy to join their Green Dragon Pavilion. And then Yang Chen asked if they wanted to say anything about the exam results after hearing what was offered to him. Our master asked the master if he wanted to apologize to him for what happened before. And then turning to Yang Chen, the master said that the question of the exam had already been resolved, so the young man could not worry about it. He could join his Green Dragon Pavilion, and he would pay the young man appropriate compensation. After hearing it was Yang Chen who realized that they were not going to change anything. To which the other master said that the young man was just a disciple of the outer court. How could he say that? He should not have thought that he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, because the young man was a disciple of the Holy Sword Master, and this is the KOG Martial Academy. To which the second master turned to Yuan Mina, asked not to talk too much. Hearing this, Yang Chen turned to the students and female students of the academy and asked for their attention, to which he said that he had been kicked out of the academy, and his hands had been itching to fight for a long time. So now he was fighting for KOG. Everyone hearing the young man was surprised by what he was saying. The young man said that for such a commoner like him, the inner academy was too inaccessible, and, by the way, he addressed the fact that his brother pointed at Wu Jiang, said that the young man was also leaving the academy, and turning around, our heroes turned away from the masters and left the battlefield. The master, looking at them, realized that these two boys were too stubborn and looked at Yuan Ming, who was standing right behind him. To which Yuan Ming shouted to the guys that they were just crazy because they couldn't just leave the academy. But our heroes turned around and left the KOG Academy, walking away, and the masters just had to look after them. Then hearing that the guys couldn't leave, they turned around and Yang Chen asked what was the matter. Yang Chen was wondering what else the master of the White Tiger Pavilion was up to and whether he wanted to teach them a lesson. To which the master said that the guys had asked for it and started attacking the students of Yang Chen and Wu Jian. Seeing this, they drew their swords and were ready to attack. But then suddenly Linxy came out against Mr. Yuan. The girl rushed to the defense of the guys and asked the master if he really was going to fight with these two boys, to which he replied that these two boys, they are disrespectful and treacherous, now he is going to kill them. And then Linxy said that it was better for the master to drop such thoughts, to which he thought it was a joke. After all, Linxy said that it was the KOG Martial Academy. Even if her father lives here, the girl could not interfere in their affairs. At this moment her father was descending from the sky asking if it was true. Everyone saw that it was the master of the Holy Sword and bowed to him. Yuan, seeing the master of the Holy Sword, said that it was a long story and justified himself to him. Then he attacked the master and without batting an eye asked who Yuan Ming was and told him to get out. Seeing this, Yang Chen thought it was awesome. His master was the coolest. Turning to the master of the Holy Sword and asked him not to be angry. It really was the academy's fault, and they would make amends to Yang Chen. Then he asked how they were going to do it, to which the master said that the academy would definitely develop a plan that would satisfy both the master and Yang Chen. To which he said that the academy should there was an understanding that the master did not care about this and did not care about where to live. He could leave this KOG Academy at any time. to which they of course said that it was so, and they explained to the master that they wanted to explain the whole situation to the head of the academy. As for Guan Ming, he would also report about it. The master said that everyone should leave and invite his students with him, namely Linxy, Chen and Jian Wujian. The master thought to himself that he was thinking that this guy who came, he heard that the young man was badly injured, did not expect that he had such strength, and looking at Guan Ming, who was lying right in front of him, asked him to go to the head of the academy. Night came and our hero, entering the master's chambers, looked at how he was cultivating and turning to the teacher. He said that he and his brother had practiced only the basic tiger fist and asked to say if they could learn martial arts now. The master interrupted him, looking at the student in front of him. After hearing that the master finished the phrase for him, our hero was insanely happy and shook his head from side to side, looking at the master with admiration, saying that this was what the young man and his brother wanted to learn. The master sitting in front of him and cultivating his energy behind a bunch of scrolls to tell him that he would not teach any martial arts until Chen reached the true martial realm. Hearing this, Chen thought that the master was very greedy and spoke about it out loud with an angry face. Then hearing this, the master punched the guy on the head with his fist. Passing by the young man, the master said that the body hardening realm is aimed at strengthening the body and strengthening the basics of martial arts. In Chen's case, practicing strong martial arts now is like putting a cart ahead of a horse. Chen should not have tried to jump over his head, Guan said. Guan said that he was going to pass on his cultivation techniques to the young man. But when he saw how unusual Chen's own cultivation techniques were, he changed his mind. Hearing this, the guy did not understand what the master was talking about. Perhaps he was talking about the heavenly sutra that the young man used. Turning to the scrolls, the master continues to talk to Chen about the fact that for a martial artist, and especially for a master of the heavenly way, the most important thing is the cultivation technique. And as for the technique of combat and martial arts, he believed that this is not the most important thing. If the young man becomes stronger, everything else will appear over time. Chen bowed to the teacher and said that he would take note of it, and with that they said goodbye to the young man. He left, leaving the master alone with his thoughts, and he went to rest after such a hard day. The next day, someone knocked on the master's yard, and opening the door, Chen saw in front of him that he was handed a box. Accepting the scroll and opening the box, the young man was stunned, and then the master approached our hero and said that one essence pill, one dragon pill, plus all these herbs that were in the box. The KOG martial school did a good job of compensating. In front of our hero was a box containing all these jewels sent by the KOG Academy, and looking into it, our hero said that he was using them right now, holding these pills in his hands so that they were sent to him. To which the master, looking at his student, asked not to take pills until he reached the 7th level body hardening. At this moment Chen was about to eat these pills that were right in front of his mouth, and looking at the master with surprised eyes, the young man did not understand what he wanted from him. The master, addressing the disciple, said that the young man had to take Kyan, Wjio and Linxy. The three of them went to the KOG mountains for training for a while. Hearing this, Chen was very glad that the girl also had to go with them. The guy's joy knew no bounds. Looking at how the young man rejoices, the master asked the guy to promise him one thing. After hearing this, the young man was surprised and interested in what kind of thing he had to promise the teacher. And then the master, addressing the disciple, asked that it not happen to protect Linxy. After hearing this, our hero was very puzzled by his request, but asked the teacher not to worry, because these demonic beasts in the KOG mountain range were nothing to him, and while he was around, they would not be able to harm Linxy. Addressing the master, the young man said a little embarrassed and scratching his head from embarrassment. So altogether they went from the palace to training. Linxy was walking in front, and our hero was walking behind her, and the father, seeing them off, wished the guys good luck, watching as the guys left to train to achieve a higher level. After 10 days on Mount KOG, Linxy, looking at the guys, said that those two were just abnormal and it had only been 10 days, but one had reached the 7th level of body hardening, and the other the 8th. The girl could not understand what was wrong with these two. In front of her were Chen of the 7th level of body tempering, smiling at the fox and saying that she could almost reach the 8th level. Was it really not so? And Wujian, the 8th level of body tempering, who stood behind and just kept silent. The girl, pouting and looking at the guys, said that she really almost reached the 8th level, but not as fast as the two that were in front of her. Then the fox stood and sulked at the guys, and Chen approached her and asked her not to worry, because they would protect her, to which the girl, leaving the guy, said that she did not need his protection. The young man was just smiling, but suddenly something caught his attention. Moving away from the guys to the side, the young man saw a flower in front of him and asked the fox to come here so that she could look, because it was the flower of 3 lives right in front of him. Approaching the young man, the fox really saw the flower of 3 lives and asked where the legendary flower came from here. Young Chen just stared and dug into the flower in front of him. Wu Jian, standing behind them, asked what the flower of 3 lives was. He was interested, because he had never seen it before and had never heard of this legendary flower that the guys were talking about. Legend has it that the Dragon Empress was not a human, but the daughter of heavenly demons. She died in an accident at the hands of her mortal enemy from the race of gods. In a fit of madness, the Dragon Emperor managed to take revenge by killing the Divine Emperor in battle. He received many wounds, but killing the enemy did not help him to return his beloved. The heartbroken Dragon Emperor used his magic power to collect all the flowers of the 3 lives and plant them in a secret place. He needed them to bury the Empress. It was her favorite flower. Later, people began to associate these flowers with the most beautiful, unwavering love and loyalty to their beloved. Linxy said, telling this story with delight. Approaching the fox from behind, the young man said so that the fox could see that it was fate and asked why they should not take an oath in front of the flowers that they would never lose each other in their lives and would be together until old age. Hearing this, the fox was very confused by what young Chen was saying, and at that moment young Chen grabbed the fox and began to fall, which they did not understand at all what was happening, as did Wu Jian, who was standing behind them, but after grabbing him, they were all already lying on the ground together. Looking at the guy, Linxy did not understand at all what the young man was doing. Then he asked her to speak softly, putting her finger to her face, because someone was walking. Embarrassed, the fox did not understand at all what the young man was doing in front of her. Our heroes were sitting in the bushes and watching the one who was walking right in front of them. These were 2 young men, Lai Hongwei and Lai Junming. And he, addressing his friend, asked if such a relic could be here. It seemed to him that they were wasting their time. To which Hongwei replied to his friend that they had been told to check this place and asked him to stop whining and finally do something. Brandishing his sword and hitting the branches of trees, Junming absolutely did not believe that there was at least 1 relic in this hole. To which his friend said that they would not return if they found nothing. And then suddenly the guy drew attention to the flower of 3 lives, which was right in front of him. His friend said that it was a rare plant. And Junming, waving his sword again, said that to hell there was a flower, because it was just a fairy tale for little girls. At that moment, he almost tried to tear it down. But our hero, seeing this, realized what the young man was going to do and snatching the sword from Wu Jian decided to repel the guy's attack. The guy, seeing that the young man ran out of the bushes and repelled his attack, asked what it meant. Our hero stood and looked at the enemy in front of him, and defending himself was just right in front of him. I apologized to the guy. The young man looked away and said that they were going to say an oath right in front of this flower, to which the guy did not understand what was wrong. But our hero said that the young man should leave this innocent flower alone, smiling at the young man. Junming, looking at young Chen, asked who he was in general, and why on earth did the Golden Eagle need the guy's permission to cut some flower. He asked what young Chen, hearing the young man's manner of conversation, asked a friend if he had been taught to talk normally. It was completely unpleasant for him to hear. The guy, looking at young Chen, said that it was just ridiculous, because some redneck tried to tell him what to do and spits out a flower from his mouth that he chewed earlier, decided to attack our hero, to which young Chen repelled the attack. Junming, looking at young Chen, saw that the guy had some skills, and then young Chen said that he had to teach his opponent a lesson. At that moment Wu Jian and Linxy came out from behind the bushes, who were looking attentively at the young man. He, burning with anger, said that he wanted to see what his opponent could teach him, to which young Chen, throwing the sword to his brother, said that the enemy should prepare for battle, and then young Chen went on the attack, and the young man asked him to wait. But it was too late. Our hero grabbed him by the head and laid him down, asking the guy as he had a lesson in good manners from him. To which a friend, grabbing his sword, ran to young Chen and tried to kill him. But at that moment Wu Jian was able to deflect the blow with his sword, and talking about the guy not interfering with his brother when he fights. The guy looked at our heroes and asked if the 8th level of body hardening was the young man in front of him. And Wu Jian was standing in front of him, holding his sword in his hand. And then the opponent asked, because he did not think that there would be a master of the 8th level of body hardening in such a place. To which Wu Jian replied to the young man that many more surprises were waiting for him, putting away his sword. Our hero at this moment, knocking down one of the guys, said that from now on he had to remember that it was necessary to talk politely. The young man was lying with his head in the ground and was already unconscious when our hero left him, taking his brother and Linxy and telling them to finally leave. Just as they were about to leave, one of the opponents who remained standing asked the guys to stop and shouted that they had just beaten them and were just going to leave, to which our hero asked what these opponents wanted from him, to which the young man said that the guys should tell them their names, because they had to pay for what they had done. Only the young man said this in Yang Chen, addressing his brother without finishing. He understood him and said that he understood. So he disappeared from his place and attacked the young man so that he no longer appeared against him. Putting away his sword, they left this place, leaving two swordsmen lying on the ground. Linxy, looking at them, said that they had to leave the Kog mountains, addressing Yang Chen and his brother, because they killed the members of the Golden Eagle and said that the guys would have problems if they stayed. To which our hero asked if the Golden Eagles were so strong, since the guys with them on butchered. Linxy said that yes, of course, the guys were very strong. They were much stronger than the Kog Academy. Then the young man, addressing Wu Jiang, said that he did not want to keep two troublemakers. Wu Jiang followed him, saying that his brother's words were true, because those two dared pluck their flower of love by addressing Linxy and Yang Chen. Linxy heard about the flower of love and did not understand what other flower of love the guy was talking about and asked not to say his nonsense. She was insanely embarrassed by what Wu Jian said and turned around and walked away from them, saying that whatever it was, they had to go. They could no longer to stay here for a long time and the guys had no choice but to follow Linxy. The next moment, they returned to the house. Opening the gate, Linxy was very surprised. There was a man standing in the middle of the courtyard in front of her. Taking the girl by the shoulder, Yang Chen did not understand what was happening. Did the Golden Eagles arrive to them so soon? And the man standing in the middle of the courtyard had a very strong aura. Turning around, the stranger said that he was here to pick up Miss, to which the father replied that it was not yet time to leave. But an argument began. Stoic began arguing with Guan Bo, saying that there were only a few days left. He wanted to see what Miss Linxy had learned in 3 years. She was very gifted and now she is only at the 7th level of body hardening. To which Guan said that the man should leave and come at the beginning of the new year, and jumping from his seat. The man said that he would stay in Kog City for a few more days. Running up to the teacher, Yang Chen asked what was going on here. He just sat in the gazebo and looked sadly at the table. Then he also asked who this old man was, why he wanted to take Linxy. To which, sipping from his glass, Linxy's father said that sooner or later the young man would have to find out. Now he'll tell him everything. Guan said that after the new year, Linxy would return to his mother in the Duanmu mansion. If Yang Chen really needed her, then he should rather become famous in the East within 5 years, as promised to him earlier. With a sad face and looking at his cup, his father said. Guan said that although he once became famous in the south of the country and was revered as a master of the holy sword, his ball spirit was destroyed and he was forced to hide in the remote town of Kog to survive. Fortunately, Linxy could stay with him for 3 whole years and that was enough for him. Yang Chen stood next to him and listened attentively to the teacher. As soon as he heard the words about Yang Chen's fighting spirit, the teacher's words alarmed him. He asked if the teacher's fighting spirit was destroyed. Then who did it? The young man was very surprised by what Guan told him. Yang Chen, looking at his teacher, asked to tell Yang Chen who did it and he would take revenge on this person for his teacher, the opponent who destroyed his fighting spirit. The teacher just sat quietly and looked sadly at his desk. Standing up, Guan said that he did not look like a good boy, but the man knew that the young man had a heart of gold and stroking his head. The teacher continued to say that his affairs did not concern the guy in any way. All Yang Chen had to do was diligently cultivate and improve his skills. Yang Chen, looking at his teacher, said that he would protect not only Linxy, but him too. Our hero was very confident in his abilities and very inspired. Guan said that he believed in Yang Chen, but this world is much bigger and more dangerous than he thought. And now Yang Chen did not even come close to the role of his protector, the teacher said as he walked past, to which Yang Chen shouted to the teacher that he would become stronger and ran away. Looking at his trail, Guan thought about it, the guy who had such a heart of gold and was so diligent in his training. Resorting to Linxy, who was sitting at the table, the young man turned to her and said that he and Linxy had sworn before the Flower of 3 Lives, so that in the future no boy except him would be able to take care of her. Did she understand him? Yang Chen asked, approaching Linxy, and the girl hearing this, she told Yang Chen that he had no shame or conscience and was embarrassed by what the young man had said earlier. Giving the herbarium from the Flower of 3 Lives to the girl from his hands, the young man, addressing the fox, said that the girl should have kept it for herself. This is his keepsake. If he is not around, then this gift will remind the girl of the young man. Seeing this, the fox was touched, and taking the herbarium, she looked after Yang running away from her Chen, and the girl, embarrassed, was holding a leaf in her hands and looking at it. Suddenly her father appeared from behind the tree. Coming out from behind the tree and looking at his daughter, the father said that Linxy should have kept this leaf as a souvenir. Perhaps they will meet again with the young man. To which the flushed Linxy, I turned to my father, said that this boy does not have a drop of shame. To which the father said that he thought that the guy was really sincere towards her. When Linxy heard what her father was saying, she asked if he was really talking about young Chen and asked what he had done to her father. To which he replied that he knew very well what kind of character the guy had and he was the only one who could keep him company when Linxy left. Hugging her father, the girl looked at him sad and turning to her father, she said that even if she did not go, they would not dare to do anything to her. Turning to Linxy, the father said that she could not refuse this promise. Besides, Linxy's mother would be very lonely, and it would be useful for the girl to spend more time with her, because it was all his fault that he was not strong enough, the father said, looking at Linxy, and the girl standing next to hugged her father by the hand. Looking at her father with her big beautiful eyes, Linxy said that her father was the strongest for her. Stroking her daughter on the head, Guan said that the girl was stupid, because there are many people who were stronger than her father. And suddenly the father asked Linxy if she had feelings for young Chen. After hearing this, the girl blushed, and embarrassed, told her father what he was asking her about. Because the young man was a scoundrel, she would never have loved him. Looking at his daughter's reaction, the father did not understand why. Then the girl took the herbarium that the young man presented to her and she threw the herbarium out of her hands, flushed and looking at her father. But then the father picked it up and said that Linxy was clearly walking away from her fate. Young Chen does not have an outstanding past, but he is very talented. He has a pure heart, which is rare to see a father say, looking at his daughter. The girl, seeing her father's reaction and what he was saying to her, just looked at him, and the father, leaving, said that he wanted his daughter to listen to her heart, and she, holding a herbarium in her hands and looking at him, asked herself if the young man was really as good as his father says about him. The city of Kog, a large golden bird like an eagle flew over the big city and its mountains, and several people sat on it. Looking at the city, they realized that this city was too small for them. Our hero, together with Wuzhong, looking at the sky, saw a golden eagle, and Yang Chen asked his brother that these were people who looked like golden eagles, to which Wuzhong wondered if they were looking for them after the incident in the forest. Yang Chen, answering his brother and looking at the sky, said that he did not think that these people were looking for them and offered to go home and wait and see what would happen. So they left the cliff where they were watching the bird. The house of the Yang and Yang Chen family came to the gate and finally said that they were at home. Wu Jian just smiled sweetly standing next to his brother, and just as they tried to open the door, their father came out to meet them, saying that the two had finally returned. Rubbing their foreheads after they hit the door that their father opened, they said that they had just returned from the martial arts academy, and looking at their father asked what happened to their father's nose. Then suddenly the father heard the words so that he did not even think to say anything to the guys, and the father, leaving, said that they would talk later. And those two had to go to their grandfather, because he was waiting for them, and the enraged father was leaving the two young men, and they just looked at each other. Then a friend came out from behind the door, Yang Chen's mother Lin Humoying, and looking at her two sons, she was very annoyed. And then when she saw the boys, she said that they had returned and beamed with happiness. Yang Chen, looking at his mother, asked what happened to Dad. Did he really make her angry again? To which the mother chuckled. She said it didn't matter. Then looking at Yang Chen, she said that she heard that the young man was kicked out of the inner academy, and asked if Yuan Ming was mocking the young man. Taking his son by the shoulders to find out for sure, the young man said not to worry, because everything had already been decided, did not smile at her. Then the mother decided to find out from Wuzhong if it was really so, and looked at her son with her sad eyes. He looked at her and said that the Chaoji Martial Arts Academy rewarded them with a lot of resources, and smiled at the girl. Then a sister came up to them, saying that her brother had finally returned and was also very happy to see them. It was Yang Mengyu, Yang Chen's younger sister, and running up to her brother, she hugged him, and Yang Chen asked if his sister missed him. Both of them smiled and hugged. The sister, looking at him with her beautiful eyes, smiling, told her brother to go to the bookstore with her, to which the mother standing behind said that it should not have been now. And, bursting into tears, the sister began to beg her brother to do it. Then the young man said that he had a lot of books and he would bring them for the girl next time. Patting my little sister on the head, realizing that her little brother was the best, she kissed him on the cheek, and then suddenly Grandpa Yang, the head of the Yang family, appeared in the doorway, clearing his throat and drawing attention to himself. When they saw the young man's grandfather, they bowed to him and he asked them to pass these two right behind him. Retreating into the gates of their estate, the guys followed their grandfather. Sitting down in a chair, grandfather said that it looked like the guys had acquired something during the year of study at the Academy of Arts and said that young Chen had acquired arrogance. It was good, but not when the young man was overly arrogant. After the new year there would be changes. Grandfather said he hoped that the guys would become stronger and they will hone their skills. Young Chen, looking at his grandfather, said that he would remember what he said to him and his grandfather hoped that it was so. Wu Jian also bowed to his grandfather, saying that everything would be done in the best possible way. The grandfather sitting in front of them talked about the shortcomings of the practice of the Heavenly Demon Emperor technique became obvious as the level of training increased. The pain he had to endure increased several times and he had to remember that he should not have fallen into the devil's abyss. Had to remember that he should not have shown his fighting spirit for 3 years even on the verge of life and death. Grandfather addressed Wu Jiang, and he remembered what grandfather said. Night came and the lanterns lit up and the whole family gathered at the dining table and started eating. Everyone was smiling and happy, except for young Chen's father and mother. Apparently there was some kind of quarrel between them and the father tried not to provoke the mother, quickly finishing his food. Then grandpa decided to raise a toast and said that it was necessary to drink to young Chenai and Wu Jian, who broke through to the 8th level of body hardening and went crazy saying that they drank to the health of the guys. At that moment someone disturbed their peace and mother asked young Chen to go and open the door to see who came. The young man went to the doors and opening them in front of him was Linxy embarrassed and standing in front of the young man. Seeing her, our hero was surprised that the girl came so late to his doorstep. When the young man saw Linxy, he froze and could not say anything. Then Linxy, smiling, asked why the young man behaved like that. Did he not recognize her? When he saw the fox, the guy said that they had not seen her for only 3 days, and she already missed him and came to the doorstep, to which the girl sadly said that she was leaving tomorrow and she wanted to see Kog in town before leaving, so she was here. Seeing that the girl was sad, the guy said that if she wanted, he would take her around the city of Kog. Although the city is small, but its night views are still very beautiful, the young man said, but Linxy said that she certainly wanted it, but she had not had dinner yet. The girl looked at the young Chen, and then, inviting her to his house, he said that they had to go and he would take her inside to introduce her to her parents. Holding his shoulder, the girl asked why young Chen behaved so formally, and sulkily followed him. Opening the doors in front of everyone, young Chen represented Linxy. Everyone was very surprised when they saw the girl, especially young Chen's younger sister, and when she saw the girl, she turned to her sister, saying that she was very beautiful. Linxy squatted down and stroked the baby's head, saying that the girl was also charming. When the mother saw Linxy, she asked if this was young Chen's girlfriend. If that was the case, then she had to sit down and brought a chair for the girl. Then turning to Linxy, who had already sat down at the table, young Chen's mother asked who this girl was and if he wanted to introduce them. Young Chen, too, sitting down at the table next to Linxy, said that it was his friend and his teacher's daughter. Her name is Kyan Linxy. And the girl smiled and greeted young Chen's mother. Smiling at Linxy, the mother was very happy and offered everyone to eat together, because they were very happy to see the girl in their house. At that moment, the father, who sat down next to him, asked young Chen if the girl was only his girlfriend or if there should have been something between them. But without finishing, the mother pinched her father's leg so that he would not say anything superfluous. Feeling her hand on his thigh, the father shuddered, because he knew that it was better with the mother could not argue. Linxy was smiling at this moment, looking at the two of them. Raising her glass, young Chen's mother asked how to greet Linxy and everyone raised their glasses, clinked glasses, saying that Linxy was happy and healthy. Smiling at the girl, everyone was sitting at the table. After the gala dinner, at night the guys went for a walk around the city. The whole city was covered with lanterns and candles lit in the windows. Walking past, young Chen looked at Linxy and then moved quickly forward, and he saw a tree in front of him and ran straight to it, to which Linxy was very surprised. Standing in front of the tree, the young man asked the fox if she knew what kind of tree it was. The young man stood next to a large tree that had golden leaves spread out on both sides of the road. Looking at the tree, Linxy said that if she was not mistaken, it was an ancient maple and looked up. Young Chen said that it was really an ancient maple and asked if the girl knew the meaning of this tree. Then the fox asked what it meant, because she really did not know what this tree meant. Soy under a tree. The hero explained that an ancient maple grows on cold ground. Its leaves are heart-shaped. If you pray under it, it will dispel the longing for a loved one. Linxy was listening attentively to the young man at this moment and blushing looked at our hero, because he said such romantic things. Standing under a tree, the young man took Linxy's hands and took them in his own, looked at the girl. The next moment they sealed their love with a kiss, standing right under this tree. So they stood for a long time, and after the kiss, the girl was embarrassed and turned away from the young man, to which he, too, was a little embarrassed and holding Linxy's hands, said that he would definitely come to her, and the girl who was embarrassed agreed with him. After diffusing the situation, young Chen began to behave as usual again and addressing Linxy said that the moon was very beautiful today and asked if it was time for them to get down to business. Then hearing about the case, Linxy was interested and asked what business they needed to go to. Young Chen, smiling and looking at the girl in front of him, said that it was necessary to take an oath before heaven and earth about their marriage. He was very happy and smiled, then stepping on his foot and trying to hit the guy. Linxy said that young Chen was very shameless and walked away, to which the young man with the broken leg he ran after Linxy and tried to ask the girl to wait for him, but she only quickly left. At this moment, in another family of Guan Ming Hao, one of the people was pouring a drink into a glass and Lai Junru, a young master from Golden Eagles, who was sitting next to him in a chair, asked Guan Ming Hao if there was any news from the Kog mountains, to which he, addressing the young master, said that not yet, but their strongest people from the Guan family had to enter the inner circle to investigate. The young man sitting there told them to send even more people. For the sake of this miracle he spent the new year in this hole. If by a miracle nothing was found there, it was all in vain, the one said, to which Ming Hao asked not to worry the young master, because they would definitely find everything. His master is the master of the White Tiger Pavilion of the Gaoji Martial Academy. He has already investigated many times. The thunder that appeared at the exam in the inner academy was definitely a harbinger of a miracle, and the Golden Eagle said that they would hope for it. And then looking out of the window, something caught his attention. He saw young Chen walking next to the fox on the road near Guan Ming Hao's house. Seeing the girl walking next to the guy, it caught the guy's attention and he was very much interested in what kind of lady was next to the young man who was so beautiful. Looking out the window, the young man jumped up and realized that he had never thought that in a place like this small village there would be such beautiful women. Looking at Linxy and beckoning Guan Ming Hao to the window, the young man asked who it was in front of him. Guan Ming Hao, turning to the window and approaching the young man, looked at who was below. Then he suddenly saw Linxy and young Chen, and the young man thought to himself that, as luck would have it, young Chen was with this girl. At that moment, our heroes were standing near the counter and looking at the hairpins that were right in front of them. Guan Ming Hao, addressing Liu, said that it was young Chen, a commoner with Kog, who was recently expelled from the academy, but was accepted as a disciple of the holy sword of Linxy's father. As for this girl, she is the daughter of Kyan Bo Guan and the #1 beauty in their Kog fighting academy. Then when he heard Guan's name, he asked how the young man dared to become his disciple. He had any idea who his teacher was? He asked, and if he was not aware, but this Kyan Guan, an important person in the south of the country, his sword spirit was destroyed. He is hiding in Chaoji, the young man said, looking at young Chen and Linxy standing below. Hearing this, Ming Hao was very surprised by what the young man was saying and what he knew. The young man next to him said that Kyan Linxy, she is Duanmu's daughter. He thought that her martial arts skills should just be incredible. Since it was so, and said that this New Year's Eve, the happiness of meeting Duanmu's daughter in Kog, they can't let this chance go and they need to go meet her. Then suddenly the man sitting at the table, addressing Junru, said that Duanmu's daughter was in safe hands. So the young man should not have thought of doing anything without thinking, and after listening to his father, he said not to worry about him. He just wanted to go down and get acquainted. In the future they might have to ask her for someone. Because he already has enough women, Junru said and jumped from the window of the house right down to our guys. Young Chen was distracted and saw that while Linxy was choosing a hairpin, someone landed next to him, and the young man, addressing Mrs. Linxy from the Duanmu house, addressed her. The girl, seeing the guy, asked if they were familiar, turning to him. Young Chen was also closely watching the youth who had disrupted their date. Breaking into a smile, the guy said that they really were strangers, but now they will fix it, and said that his name was Liu Junru and the girl probably had already heard about him. Then turning away from the guy and contemptuously despite him, Linxy said that she had never heard of him. Junru tried to make a gesture to Linxy, said that his family was very close to her family, so on New Year's Eve, being out of town, Would she be so kind as to invite him to visit her? After hearing this, she said that she could not do it because she knew the young man too poorly, and addressing she told Yang Chen that it was time for them and they had to go. Yang Chen did not understand at all what kind of guy was in front of him, and then grabbing Yang Chen by the hand, the girl left with him. He only looked away from them. Yang Chen said that it was the first time he had seen such an arrogant guy. He wanted to beat him up. Our hero was very angry at someone who could try to get to know his future bride. Linxy just looked at him with an angry face, then turning to the young man and telling little Yang Chen that he could not defeat him right now, although Junru was not very good. But he had already reached the true martial realm. Besides, the young man was a young master of the Golden Eagle class, and even she did not want to deal with him once again. Linxy told her. After hearing that the guy was from the Golden Eagle clan, our hero was very surprised and thought to himself that the young master of the Golden Eagle clan, that they didn't care who, if he managed to molest his future wife. It annoyed Yang Chen very much, until he was thinking about everything to himself. Then, turning to the fox, the young man said whether the girl would stop calling him Chenner. So his mother called him at the time, and he was very embarrassed when the girl addressed him by this name. The fox, hearing this, asked if the young man was unpleasant when she called him that, so she told Linxy that the young man could. But she could not, and said that the guy was a cunning fox. At that moment she was smiling at him. A little embarrassed, Yang Chen misinterpreted her reaction and tried to kiss her, but something immediately moved away from Yang Chen, and he ran after her saying that he wanted another kiss. The girl runs away from his attacks and showing her tongue, told Yang Chen that he was very cute, but she would not kiss him anymore, and he ran after her, blurring, smiling and trying to catch up with the fox so that she would give him at least one more chance. Winter came and the whole yard was covered with snow. Then an old man flew after the fox on a golden eagle, saying that the girl had to follow right behind him and climbing on the bird. The fox said goodbye to everyone, including our hero, so they flew away, and Yang Chen followed her with his eyes. The next moment, while he was staying on the hill from where he was escorting the fox, Guan came up to him and, seeing the guy, asked if he was here because he had been looking for him all this time, and told Yang Chen that he had come to say goodbye to the girl. His daughter was so good that she had already managed to get him. Yang Chen was only silent, and then the father asked why the young man was silent. He was talking to him, and came to tell him and ask what he was doing with his daughter last night. Yang Chen tried to speak as coolly as possible, saying that it was unimportant, because what was done could not be undone. Then the father, hearing this, did not understand at all what the young man had done, and he only asked the teacher with a serious face when they could go to the city of Tianan. The teacher was interested in why the guy needed it to this city, to which he was surprised to say that, of course, to return the fox. The father, seeing the young man's reaction, turned around and said that it was too early for the guy to go to Tianan and he had to return in order to train further. At that moment he left the young man and asked him to come back and train, and he himself went into the house. Then Yang Chen, looking at the empty sky, thought to himself that Linxy was waiting for him, because he would soon come for the girl in Tianan, and the young man was ready for training and for what was waiting for him next, to return his beloved and be near her. The day after Linxy's departure, the young man stood by his master and looked at the scroll that was in his hands. And the master at that moment was enjoying his tea ceremony sitting in the fresh air. At that moment our young man began to shake. The whole earth trembled under him, and then the guy who addressed the teacher asked, what kind of earthquake was it? To which the teacher, looking at the sky, said that a big trouble was coming and that Kog might cease to exist. Hearing this, the young man was madly surprised and asked the teacher what he meant. Then Guan, addressing Yang Chen, asked if he still remembered the last miracle. Last time the thunderstorm was only a harbinger of a miracle, Guan said, and then Yang Chen, addressing Guan, and asked if a miracle could lead to the destruction of Kog. Then his teacher said that a miracle is a favorable sign. How he can destroy Kog. The destruction of Kog was caused by a human catastrophe. Many influential people penetrated into the mountains of Kog to try to force open this miracle. They did not know that only those who are destined to receive a miracle can get it. If you take his powers, it will certainly lead to disaster. Our hero, watching the reflections of his teacher, who was looking at the sky and was very sad and worried about this news, realized that perhaps the golden eagles, whom our hero had met earlier in the mountains, were behind all this. Then their thoughts were interrupted by Wu Jian rushing in, telling his brother that something was wrong and he had to go home urgently, to which our hero said that he certainly would not go anywhere. Grandfather must have foreseen this catastrophe when he sent them to the Kog Academy, and he wanted to see what will happen next. Wu Jian only looked at his brother carefully and listened to what he was saying. The teacher, continuing to look at the sky, said that a few years ago he went deep into the mountains of Kyoji, really found a sealed miracle. He was guarded by spiritual beasts. Hearing this, our heroes were greatly surprised, because they did not understand what kind of animals we are talking about. Then the teacher said that this miracle was guarded by terrible spiritual beasts. Even the masters from the heavenly kingdom could not cope with them. He said, and this earthquake should be caused by those people who longed for a miracle and angered the robber beasts. Listening to the teacher, young Chen turned to him and said that the Golden Eagle clan was most likely to blame for this, because when the three of them were in the mountains, they encountered a group of strong members of the Golden Eagle clan, who were just looking for this very miracle, as it seemed to our hero. After hearing about the Golden Eagle clan, Guan was beside himself with anger, saying that, as usual, they did not care about the lives of ordinary people, and for the sake of their selfish desires, they were ready to sacrifice all the residents of Kyoji City. And then he, addressing Yang Chen and Wu Zhong, said that they had to go and see what these Golden Eagles were up to, so the trio moved out on the road. Meanwhile, a knight came to the Guan family in the city and said that it was their family that had just caused the earthquake, and was it really so, asking what the Golden Eagle clan was doing in the Kyoji mountains. Then they rubbed their beards and sat silently, at first did not answer, but then thinking the oldest of them began to speak. Turning to General Huatian, they said that they were just holding a banquet for young Master Lai, and he didn't know why everyone was making such strange remarks to them. But those beasts in the Kyoji mountains obviously can't stay alone and want to invade Kyoji City. He asked how the general was supposed to protect them and fulfill his duty to protect the people. The general, hearing the man address him, said that it looked like their family was somehow involved in this case, since they were so indifferent to what would happen, to which, addressing General Huatian, one of them asked what he meant. Did he think that he was superior to everyone only because they have an army of green tigers under their command? The captain, hearing this, said that he knew that the Guan family and the Golden Eagles were thinking, because he had just sent out a lot of pigeons so that they would spread the news around the world of Tian'an that the miracle of the Dragon Emperor was about to appear. And hearing this, he was very angry and realized that now this guy spread the news and they had problems. The commander was removed from the territory of the Guan family, and the man turned to the second uncle and asked what he needed to do now. Lai Quanxing looked at his relative sitting next to him and taking a glass said that the news of the miracle would surely spread across Tian'an, and not only a large number of influential people would gather here, but also members of the imperial family. Everyone would be concerned about this news, he said. Then Yuan also stood up, saying that they had to act decisively. It was necessary to send the martial artists, who are now in Kyoji, to the mountains to clear the way to a miracle, to which they saw what the master was offering, saying that it was too cruel. Were they really going to pave the way by sacrificing human lives? And turning to the second uncle, he said that it was necessary to do this. The second uncle, according to the men, had to go to the residence of the city master and ask him to gather all the martial artists at the foot of Kyoji mountain. He would go to the martial arts house and ask all the students and instructors of the martial arts house to gather, and they would still be able to break through. At that moment, a lot of people gathered at the foot of Kyoji mountain, and our hero, along with his brother and Guanbo, arrived at the mountain, and then our hero saw his sister standing not far from them and asking how things were going. The young man approached the girl. When she saw young Chen, she was surprised and asked if the young man was also here. And she told me that demonic and spiritual beasts were coming out of the Kyoji mountain range. The situation got out of control. It was at this moment that all the swordsmen were fighting with an angry bear that came out of the mountain and ran straight towards our heroes, scattering the corpses of the defenders guard around him. Seeing that a big bear was rushing at them, Guanbo suddenly used his power to stop him when he stood right in front of our heroes. Then other demonic beasts came out of the portal and other swordsmen fought with them. Young Chen saw what the teacher had done, that if the situation was so deplorable, why didn't the strongest from the Battle Academy come here? To which he said that it was wrong. The Battle Academy would suffer first if the beasts broke through the defense. And then the head of the academy arrived along with the rest of the elders, and everyone saw that the martial arts experts were here. Now everyone was saved, and the lord of the city also came to the rescue. At that moment all the soldiers were rejoicing, because they were fighting against a giant snake that could kill them, and now they were saved. Han Yig, the lord of Kyoji City, arrived to help the swordsman guard who were fighting stand up. Wu Jian, seeing him, said that it was great, because with so many people they would not be able to stop these beasts. To which Guan said that he was afraid that it would not be so easy, and looking to the side he thought what would happen next. At that moment, one of the elders jumped out of the crowd and told everyone to listen to him and go to the Kyoji mountains, "Kill all these beasts." All the disciples standing behind him were ready to follow the order, and our hero was angry at the Golden Eagle clan, because he was sure that they were plotting something bad and wanted to properly teach this clan a lesson, because he absolutely did not like how he got to know this clan and what kind of people there were in it. The commander, addressing everyone, said that all this was nonsense, and they had to hold the defense, as they thought what would happen as soon as the beasts entered the city. The commander addressed everyone. At this moment, addressing Lai Huatian, the head of the city, said that the only way to eradicate this disaster was to beat the demonic beasts in the mountains Keoji. And then turning to Han Yig, the captain asked if he was still the lord of Keoji. Then from what stage the person behind him was giving them orders. The one who stood behind him, rushing at the captain, decided to teach him a lesson and hitting the captain. He understood that the force was very powerful in the man who attacked him and crashing into the rock. The captain asked him if he was from the kingdom of heavenly harmony. Hearing this, young Chen was also surprised, knowing about heavenly harmony. While the commander was recovering from hitting the mountain wall, our hero could not believe that this is the kingdom of heavenly harmony. Today there are 5 realms of martial arts that he knew about. Young Chen thought to himself, looking at this whole situation. The body tempering sphere is the most basic martial arts sphere. It is mainly designed to perfect the body and the basics of a martial artist. The true martial realm is focused on cultivating true Kai, which can be released into the air at the level of the martial realm of truth. The martial arts practitioner is already quite solid, and the form of the foundation for Kung Fu cultivation can be transformed. The most common cultivator of the true martial realm is found in Tianan. However, those who really stand at the top of this heavenly harmony cultivators. At this moment, one of these cultivators was standing in front of the captain, who was trying to get up from his seat. And at the level of heavenly harmony, it is necessary to awaken the fighting intention, which is what the one who opposed the captain was doing now. At the top of the kingdom of heavenly harmony is the legendary kingdom of the immortals, which was reached only by the emperor of the eastern lands. At this moment, the man ordered everyone to enter the Keoji mountain range and kill the beasts. Those who do not will be killed. Then, addressing young Master Lai, one of the masters asked if he could lead the students to take them to the combat academy. 4 masters and instructors would accompany them to the mountains to kill the beasts, to which he turned to Ding Yuan, saying that of course he could do whatever he wanted and thanked him for his support. Lai, looking at Lai Huatian, asked what was about him. He got up from his seat and said that he would take half of the Green Tiger warriors to the mountains. The remaining half would have to defend the city of Keoji, to which Lai said that it was fine and that was what they decided. The father, addressing the elder sister of our hero, said that she should take half of the Green Tiger warriors and stay in Keoji. But the girl could not believe that her father could do this to her, because she also wanted to fight with everyone together, and not accompany everyone else to the city. Then Lai turned to everyone and told them to go to the mountains and kill all these animals. The whole Guan family also followed the man and looked at young Chen and Mr. Bo Guang. Then Ming Hao told the young gentleman that he wanted to take young Chen up the mountain, and when he heard this, he asked who young Chen was, because he had completely forgotten about this young man. Then turning towards our hero, he remembered that it was the same guy. Guan Bo, who was standing next to our hero, told them not to involve them in their vile affairs, and young Chen stood next to him and only watched the conversation. Then Junru, turning to the Lord of the Holy Sword, said that he thought it was better for his disciple to go with them, and he, as a teacher, would not forbid, because in the mountains the young man would get a lot of experience and the teacher would be able to look after him, and who knows what might happen to him here. To which Bo Guang asked if the young man dared to threaten him. When he saw how angry the teacher was, he said that, as young Master Lai had said, a hike up the mountain was a great opportunity for him to gain experience. The master, having calmed down, thought to ask that young Chen was right. This could be a very rare opportunity. He did not believe that the Golden Eagle clan would be able to get a wonderful treasure, and therefore the master said that he was letting his disciple go and wanted to witness how the Golden Eagle family would harvest a wonderful treasure. Lai, addressing Huatian, said to take his men here and go ahead into the mountains. The rest had to follow him. Hearing this, of course, the captain was dissatisfied with what he was ordered, but there was nothing to do and he obeyed, ordering his soldiers to go right behind him. Everyone went uphill including our hero, and the rest. In the next moment, the giant boar scattered all the swordsmen and warriors around him, and they tried to keep his strength, and young Chen, looking at this, told the teacher that he was afraid that at this rate most of the students would die before they reached the wonderful treasure. He just looked ahead and said that such was the fate of weak people who follow the flow. The teacher also asked young Chen to remember that if he wanted to be the master of his fate, he had to work hard on cultivation. This was the last thing the teacher said to his disciple before night fell. Everyone was sitting by the fire, and Huaishan, addressing young Master Junru, said that the Green Tigers had suffered greatly, so he asked them to forgive them for not being able to take the initiative in future battles, to which the young man understood that leading them to certain death was a bad idea, but only to himself. And then, after looking at young Chen, he came up with something. Addressing the captain, he said that he agreed with his request and that tomorrow they would be the second echelon of the martial arts academy team and Mr. Han Cheng's allied forces would be the first line. Early the next morning, everyone gathered and went to the mountains again. Young Chen walked in front with his master and Wu Jian, and everyone else followed him. Then the young man suddenly saw and asked the teacher to look. The guy was very surprised. There was a high mountain in front of him. Then everyone saw the mountain that towered in front of them, understood that it was a miracle, and Junru thought to himself that the legacy of the Dragon Emperor could be preserved inside this huge wall. If he could receive the inheritance of the Dragon Emperor, he would definitely be able to reach the Kingdom of Heavenly Harmony, or the Kingdom of Immortals. The young man dreamed about what would definitely become known in the Eastern Land, making the Golden Eagle clan an immortal clan that would be known 1,000 miles away. Seeing the mountain, the teacher understood that this beast was still there and looked ahead of him. Junru at this moment was telling his uncle to look at this huge wall, because it was definitely a miracle, and he saw it and said that if it was really a miracle left by the Dragon Emperor, then they had to get it, and at the moment the miracle has not yet appeared. If they try to activate it to open, then there will be problems. Then the guy, looking at it all, said that the second uncle was right and it was necessary to send someone there, and for this someone to inspect the area. Then he saw young Chen, who was talking to his teacher, and realized that this was a suitable target. Approaching young Chen, the young man seemed to ask if the guy's name was really like that and said that it would be easier for him to check what was there, so the guy had to go. Upon hearing this, the teacher defended his student and asked what the Golden Eagle was talking about. Then Lai, looking at Kanbo Guang, hoped that he would behave well, but Guang said that the young man was his disciple. It was he who decides whether his disciple will go there or not. Isn't he trying to force him to do something without his consent? Energy began to burn around Kanbo Guang, because he was very angry because they tried to persuade the young man to do what he should not have done. Looking at Guang, Lai said that he was too confident in himself. If he had been at the peak of his popularity, he would have been a little more intimidating. But now whether he was worthy of challenging him was asked by the one. The men were angry at each other, and at that moment young Chen realized that it was bad. Therefore, he asked to wait for his teacher and asked to let him go. Calming down a little, the teacher, looking at his student, asked if young Chen was a complete fool, to which Wu Jian also shouted to young Chen that the young man could not go there. Young Chen also said that when he returned, he had to tell his grandfather that he would be his grandson in the next life. Everyone understood that our hero had to go there, but the young man was very confused, to which his brother only winked at him and went on. Seeing that his brother winked at Wu Jiang, he did not understand at all what it meant. The teacher, realizing that young Chen was going to go, said that he could not do it, to which the guy asked the teacher to trust him, because everything was fine. The young man was confident in himself and jumped into the bowels of the rock at that moment. Looking at the confident young Chen, the teacher did not understand what had happened to this boy. While everyone was standing at the top, they could only wait and watch what young Chen would do in this hole. The young man was standing on the ground after going down, and then everyone understood that there was no danger there. The next moment a monster made its way to our hero, and seeing a giant incomprehensible something in front of him, young Chen tried to understand what it was. But this giant something got out, and everyone standing near the abyss tried to stop it. Then the beast asked how everyone dared to disturb his sleep and said that they all had to die. And at that moment the young man looked at the dragon that was right in front of him and tried to escape with his hands from his lava. The next moment, the dragon was already sticking out its tongue, and everyone was thinking that this dragon had just eaten young Chen and pointing their finger at him. Bo Guang and our hero's brother tried to shout to young Chen, because they were shocked by what they saw. Then Guang, telling the Golden Eagle clan that they forced him to do this, began to get angry and use his energy, remembering everything that was related to young Chen. Young Chen was condemned to become his disciple. Guan wanted to save someone that night, but he never thought that he would go to someone with such an amazing talent. Bo Guang remembered exactly about the very night when our hero was struck by lightning, and a weakened young Chen was brought to Bo Guan, who was treated by the master, and while he was treating him, he noticed that the young man had all the attributes of a heavenly master, and now nothing has become of the young man. Annoyed and enraged, Bo Guang took out his sword and cultivated his energy. Then everyone saw that it was a strong fighting soul, and it was the light of the sword spirit. Did Guang get tired of living? Everyone thought that he used his energy and turned against Junru, who fled from his sword, and also Master Lai was also attacked by him with swords. Trying to defend himself, Lai did not think that after such a serious injury, this Guang still has such strength. While the teacher was dealing with everyone who was not nice to him, Wu Jiang went down into the abyss to find his brother, and realizing that he felt his brother, he knew that the young man did not die and was very happy about it, looking at the dragon that was next to him. Our hero found himself at a beautiful waterfall, and looking at him, the young man opened his mouth, because he did not understand at all what kind of place it was. Then he heard a voice that was addressing him, saying that the baby was finally here, and our hero could not understand what kind of voice it was. The voice called him to go there, calling the guy a kid. Then our hero understood that it was because of this voice that he agreed to go here, but did not expect that he would be swallowed alive. Then our hero turned towards the forest and saw a beetle on a far distant tree on a branch that was sitting on it and looking at it. The guy did not understand what had happened to him, how he could develop his divine feeling. So our hero grabbed his head and tried to understand what was happening. Addressing young Chen as a kid, she asked him something and told him that they had met for the first time and whether the young man was satisfied with the meeting ceremony. There was a yellow shimmering core in front of the young man, and our hero was trying to find out what it was and who was in front of him. Then the core, addressing the young man, said that this was his sea of consciousness. Realizing that our hero is in the big world, he could not understand how the sea of consciousness was so big, and did the creature not think so either. Then the creature said that he felt his fear, addressing the baby, and said that it was not good. The great devourer is not afraid of other creatures. Our hero stood and just asked what a devourer was, because he did not understand what the core was talking about. When he heard what happened to the core, he said he understood that he had blabbed to the young man and said that it meant nothing, asking how the Yang family was doing, addressing the baby. Young Chen, looking at this core, did not understand who it was or what it was, but how did he know that he was from the Yang family? At this moment, the core said that the young man forgot about it. Most likely none of them remained, and asked the guy if he liked swords, to which our hero replied that he liked it, and then the core said that it was great. Since the young man likes swords, he will make him a gift, and Jan Chen was insanely glad to hear this, being in this situation in which he was standing in the middle of the forest and listening to the yellow ball that flashed above him. Looking at the core, the young man looked at him and did not understand what kind of gift he was talking about. At that moment he found himself in front of the dragon again, and he told him to get up and not forget to pay homage to him when he finished training and achieved success. Young Chen was lying on the ground looking at the dragon and asking if it was him who was talking to him. Our hero, looking around, saw the master, who was sitting leaning against the mountain and was completely exhausted. And next to him was Wu Jian, who was surprised at our hero and rushing to them. The young man shouted to the master, and Wu Jian shouted to his brother with tears in his eyes that he was alive. Running up to the master, our hero could not understand who had done to the teacher what he had done to him. Guan, looking at our hero from the wounded, said that he was fine and he had not died yet, to which the young man was madly angry and cursed the golden eagles who had done this to him. Then, while helping his master to rise, young Chen turned to the elder beast that was in front of him, namely the dragon, who was talking to him. Addressing the elder beast, young Chen said could he go and kill all these vile people with golden eagles on their clothes, to which the dragon jumped up and went to carry out young Chen's orders. Wu Jian and Bo Guang were very surprised that the animal obeyed our hero. Guang, addressing young Chen, said that since the great beast liked him here, the young man had a chance to get a wonderful legacy, and young Chen said that he would try to find out about it by looking at the mountain in front of him. Half an hour later, the dragon returned to his master and told the kid that he had killed those people with golden eagles on their clothes and they all deserved to die. Our hero thanked the dragon, because it was the highest divine beast, and he was very glad that he obeyed him and did everything at his request. Meanwhile, being far away from the battle under the broken Junru trees, the wounded man did not understand what had happened. Was this beast killing his people? It was good that he had changed clothes, otherwise he would have been killed too. Young Chen at this moment, addressing the elder, said that he was very powerful and he would definitely be able to cure his master. Behind him stood Guan, who was supported by Wu Jian, and they all looked at the dragon that was in front of them. The dragon said that it was not difficult to save the master's life, but the power of his soul was gone. If he wanted to return his soul, he needed a treasure capable of embodying it, and the dragon did not have such a treasure, he said, looking at the people who were right in front of him. Bo Guang, addressing the dragon, asked just to save his life, because that would be enough. The one radiating light from his eyes dropped it right on Bo Guang's head, and he looked shocked right in front of him, and then fell. Then the dragon said that everything would be fine with the master, but now he needs sleep, and Young Chen, together with Wu Zhong, tried to lift the master to then take him to rest. But then Yang Chen remembered that he needed to ask about the miraculous legacy. With burning eyes, turning to the Supreme, the young man asked if there was a great legacy in this stone wall. The dragon, hearing about it, asked about what legacy the young man was talking about. Because this is a tomb that should not be desecrated by outsiders, he would have sent him away. But the young man was too weak, so he had to stay here and train for some time. At that time, he asked Yang Chen not to forget that a gift was waiting for him, and the next moment the beast dissolved right in front of our hero. Yang Chen stared in shock at what was happening in front of him. Yang Chen thought to himself, was this supreme beast joking with him? He said he would make some kind of gift, but nothing happened to the young man and he did not understand anything at all. He just stood and looked in front of him. Wu Jian approached his brother and said that the spiritual aura here is so rich, they could cultivate right here. And the young man understood that, of course, this is a place that the beast likes. Maybe that's why there was such a good aura here, and when he sat down, closing his eyes, he realized that something was wrong, and feeling the spirit of the sword, the young man understood that he had awakened the second fighting spirit. At that moment, there was a small dragon inside the young man, which wrapped around the ball. And our hero realized that he was in the ocean of consciousness of a spiritual beast. Being on the battlefield, where there were many swords, and looking in front of him, he saw a spirit that was watching him and began his conversation. The spirit, addressing Yang Chen, said that he was the 9999 generation of the Sword Eater's fighting spirit. He traveled across the continent and killed countless swordsmen. Only 33 of them died with a sword in their hands, and because of their weak qualifications, they were able to comprehend only 9 of the 13 balls of devouring heaven, and said that it was time to pass this baton for the 10,000th generation. At this moment, our hero tried to hold onto his head, because this strength was incredible. Then, letting go of his head, the young man realized about the spirit of the devouring sword, and looking in front of him the fighting spirit devouring 8 out of 10 of the highest fighting spirits of the era. But how it was possible, our hero could not understand in any way. There are 10 supreme martial spirits who stand above the usual 4 ranks of the heaven of the earth. Xuan, yellow. They appeared in ancient times, and each of them is a celestial being. They passed their heritage from generation to generation. While our hero was aware of everything that was happening to him, looking at his hands, he understood that the most terrible thing is the devouring of the second ball. If its owner is not powerful enough and will not be able to cope with it, he will be absorbed, and his soul will be buried in the world of swords, where our hero was just the same, in front of which there were millions and millions of swords that were stuck in the ground. Since ancient times, there have been many sword masters whose dead souls can belong to the owner of the devouring martial spirit of the sword, and reaching for the sword, the young man decided to get one of them. There is a prerequisite that the divine sense of the owner is strong enough to perfectly pull the sword's fighting soul out of the crossroads of souls, and the young man wanted to see what kind of ball soul he could get by pulling the writhing sword out of the ground. The next moment, our hero had already woken up sitting in his place in his world, and felt what the power of the sword was inside him, realizing that he was able to get it, and the sword obeyed him. The next moment, Guan approached him, looking at his disciple, and asked what the young man was so happy about, to which he said that he would not tell his teacher about it, and he looked at the guy and did not understand how he could not tell him about it. The young man, laughing and looking at Guan, told the master that he was very happy for him, to which he asked what the young man was talking about. But our hero replied that now he was not only an amazing student, but also an enviable son-in-law. At that moment our hero pointed at himself and smiled, to which Guan, standing in front of the young man, thought that the young man had completely lost his shame. Guan looked at Yang Chen and said that he could not even think about what he would give him Linxy, to which the young man was shocked when he heard this and said that the gentleman should have been generous. Then Guan asked if the young man knew at least how to spell this word. Upset, Yang Chen said that he doesn't know, but the teacher had to teach him this. At that moment Guan said that he was hungry and tired of everything. Then the guy, realizing that the teacher was probably joking, thought to himself that no monster would dare to come to this territory, and offered the teacher to go and eat something with Wu Jiang. He agreed and left with Bo Guan. Our hero was left alone, and some time later, cultivating his energy and his new sword, fiery energy reigned around our hero. Returning, Wu Jian saw that the guy was approaching the peak of the first level of the true martial realm. It was very exciting. Bo Guan, eating someone's paw, said that it was of no use, that the young man did not even understand one movement of the heavenly sword technique, and said that he made a mistake when he took the young man as a disciple. Eating his food, Guang said, looking at the guy. Wu Jian only watched the anger of the master from the side, and our hero was cultivating energy at this moment. Guan said that he still had milk on his lips, But he already wanted to marry his daughter and said that this would never happen, because the kid made him very angry, finishing his food and throwing away the bone. The master said, "The technique of the heavenly sword is a martial art of the Xuan rank. If it is difficult for a young man with it, then how did he get ready to learn the rest? Because it will only be more difficult," and saying that he will go to look for food, and those two had to continue their training. Looking at the bones under Guan's feet, Wujian thought to himself that he had just eaten and was shocked by the master's appetite. Then suddenly something attracted his attention and he turned his attention to his brother, who was cultivating his energy at that moment.